Welcome to my channel, where mysteries unfold, strange tales come to life, and the unexplained takes center stage. Here, we dive deep into eerie legends, unsolved cases, and supernatural phenomena that defy logic. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Brace yourself, keep an open mind, and join us as we uncover the world's greatest mysteries. Please listen to the story True Hauntings Growing Up with the Unknown. My name is Melissa. I live in a small town near Victorville, California. My whole life, ever since I was 8 years old, I experienced my first paranormal story. As a vine older, I still had a lot of things happen to me. Seen things, heard things, felt different things. Everybody in my family says I have that sixth sense, that I just attract spirits. My grandma's house is in Juarez, Mexico. My dad grew up in that house. It's still in the family to this day. I was 8 years old. We were staying in the guest room. My mom, my dad, my siblings, my aunt and uncle. We were all staying in that spare room. That night, I could not go to sleep. I felt really anxious and scared. I didn't know why, and I remember putting a blanket over my head. But it was really hot. I felt like I had to do that. That's the first time I've ever felt that sensation, or felt that way. I was laying down, facing the curtain that they use as a door. As soon as I took the blanket off over my head, there was a man standing there against the doorway, a tall, slender figure wearing a hat, a trench coat, but it was just a shadow. I didn't see a face, just a shadow of a man standing there. I froze and then started crying. Everybody woke up. I told my mom. I saw somebody standing there by the doorway. Of course, when everybody looked, it was gone. Nobody was there. I didn't see anything the next day, but I don't even think I slept the next night. I just wanted to leave. I have an aunt who had seen that same man in that same room when she saw him. She said that he was kneeling as if he was praying. We're the only two that have ever seen him. My grandma. He said she always knew there was someone in that house, but it never bothered her. She never felt scared or threatened by it. My uncle, who lives in that house with my grandma, he would see things. He would feel like somebody was watching him. So a lot of people didn't like going to my grandma's house for that same reason. My dad did tell me when he had slept in that same room. He was falling asleep. He looked up on the ceiling. He saw a huge butterfly on the ceiling. My grandma always loved butterflies. We don't know who that could be, or if it's a family member. My grandma thinks it might be maybe an uncle of her. First, all I know about the house is that my dad grew up in it. There was one previous owner. There was a woman who got burned in that house, but the person I saw was a man. We still don't know who he is. I know there's been a lot of experiences in that house. My grandma passed away a few years ago. I went back after COVID and everything. It just feels different. It doesn't feel like whatever was there is there anymore. Growing up, I've had a lot of little, different instances and stories. When we first moved to the high desert, actually the first house we bought, a lot of things that would happen in that house. When we first moved in, my dad found a doll. It was made out of cloth. That was shoved inside a mason jar. It was closed. He took it out. He was in the pantry. He opened it. He thinks it was an innocent person that they had trapped in there. And in his way, he was setting that person free. He opened it up. I wouldn't say that's what caused all the things that would happen in that house. When I was younger, I would feel like somebody was watching me. I had to be in elementary school, maybe a 4th, 5th grade, when I was walking to that pantry. actually to grab something. I had my back facing the living room, towards the hallway where all the bedrooms were at. I just remember feeling this really cold sensation, as if something walks through you. My whole body just went cold. I froze. After I got out of that shock, I ran to where my mom and her friend were at, and I started crying. From then, I would always hear people talking or things, or whispers. I would hear my mom calling me, my mom's voice, and I would answer. Nobody was there. Nobody. It wasn't my mom. My mom used to have a lot of porcelain dolls as well. There was a ledge at the very top of the living room, and she had all these porcelain dolls there. I remember vividly laying down on the couch, looking up at this one doll she had in particular. She had curly blonde hair, blue and white dress. I remember looking at the doll. I was just staring at it. I remember the dog moving its head side to side, looking at me. We lived in that house up until I was, like in middle school. That's when we moved to a different house, in the same city, just about in every house I've ever moved to. I've always experienced or seen something, seeing something, hearing something. I started to believe, what if it is me? What if I am the one that everywhere I go, I just bring something with me? I had a friend, a really good friend of mine. I had gone over to her house. When I walked into her room, I felt this really heavy, uncomfortable feeling. I've gone to her house plenty of times, and I've never felt like that. But I walked in and I just wanted to get out of there. I just don't know why, and we left. Came back when I had gone back into her room. She was telling me that, some of the things that she had in her room. I noticed like new things. She had these monkeys that hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, that belonged to her friend who passed away. When she told me that, I felt this overwhelming sensation, and I think that's what it was, because she had some personal belongings of her friends that I just felt overwhelming energy of sadness. I just started crying, telling her all these things I felt, as if her friend had somehow channeled herself. Through me, I don't know. Like maybe a medium type of situation. It was very emotionally draining too. It does take a lot out of you. I didn't realize because I've never had that happen. The last big experience I really had, I would say, was back in 2019. I don't know if I was just going through a rough place in my life. My mom has always said, whenever you just feel very vulnerable, emotionally or mentally, that's when things try to attach themselves to you. There was my desk I had bought at Goodwill. Everybody knows me to be notorious in buying things, from antique stores, thrift stores, yard sales, and everybody always says, well, you always buy all these things, and you never know what could be attached to it. This desk that I bought, I still have it to this day. It's not in my room, but I still have it to this day. My bed is facing the wall. The desk is on the right-hand side of my wall. Everything's facing my door. I was having a lot of nightmares at that point. I've never been one to have sleep paralysis, but during that point of my life, I was having a lot of sleep paralysis. Every night, I was having really vivid, horrible nightmares. It was just odd. There was not a night that I could not go to sleep without having a nightmare or sleep paralysis. Could never actually rest. I would not turn off my light. I would leave sleep with my light on. Every time I fell asleep, it was almost this kind of sensation of, well, I know it's not going to be good sleep, because this is going to happen, because it was just something that was just happening. Every night, I'll have a cousin my cousin. She lives in Mexico. She had came with her sister. They were just staying a couple days with us. I never told her about what I was going through. I never told her anything about my room. The next day, my cousin. She had heard somebody trying to open the door. She woke up scared because she heard the door knobbing, but nobody was coming in. Her sister, she has you can say sixth sense. She can pick up on things, or she knows things. She told me there's something in your room. I could feel it when I spent the night here. She had asked me, she's like, have you been having a lot of nightmares? Or have you just been feeling scared in your room? She confirmed my suspicion that there was something attached to a piece of furniture. When she told me that, I just was thinking, it has to be something that I've bought in, that I didn't have before. After she had told me that, she confirmed my suspicion. Okay, I'm not going crazy. These things are happening for a reason. There was one night I was laying in my bed and I thought I was awake. I remember looking over to the right, to my right-hand side of my bed where my desk is at, and I see a woman standing there by my desk. This lady, I didn't know who it was or who she was. She was looking at me with her black, shoulder-length hair, wet white lace wedding dress. She was wearing a mask, though, a tiger mask. When she noticed that, I realized that I was actually not awake. Then that's when she tilted her head. That's what really made me realize she sees me. She knows I'm aware and that I'm seeing her. After that, I just woke up. She is someone that was attached to that desk. I don't know who she is, but the weirdest thing is that after I actually saw her that night, I stopped experiencing any sort of nightmares or sleep paralysis. I still have that desk to this day. After that night that I had seen her, I didn't experience anything else again. At least, nothing major like that. I just never seen her again. I'm just curious still. I think about it to this day. Why is it that when I saw her, she's wearing like a wedding dress, or that she was wearing a mask, a tiger's mask, which is weird. I just to this day wonder why. Maybe she didn't want to be seen. I think it's just more of a curiosity that I have. To this day, I've had little things happen here and there. In the house I'm currently living in, where I hear people talking or things moving, just hear noises in the house. It's not a consistent every time, but I will hear things here and there. I think it was last year I had seen him at my house. Actually, where I'm living at right now, in my sister's room. My sister had also says that she's seen him. I know I've looked it up. They say it's the Hat Man. So they say, I don't know if it's something a lot of people have seen. Some people have different names. They say they've seen this man. Tall, slender man. I had seen him about a year ago, when I had spent the night in my sister's room. We were sharing the same bed, and I had seen him by the doorway again, which is funny, because that's where I saw him the first time, when I was younger. That's really the only other time I've ever seen him, besides when I was little. That same night was the same thing. I was laying there, and I couldn't go to sleep. I just had this fence to look over by the doorway. I had seen him there again, just standing there. But this time he was actually in front of the door. He wasn't against the wall. He was actually in front of the door. But the weird thing is, I didn't feel scared. I just acknowledged that he was there. I had told my sister about it, and she's like, yeah, I've seen him a lot. He comes and goes. Would just show up here, and then I won't see him. So, I don't know if this particular person that we've seen is something that it's just maybe part of our family, or maybe I've seen him before. I just don't recollect, because when you're younger, growing up, there's a lot of things you don't remember. But I just think sometimes you just have that sixth sense where you can see, feel, and hear things that other people can't. I don't really think there's anything that surprises me. There's a lot of skeptics, or people that don't really believe in anything like that, but even then, it's one of those things that when you experience it, it's very real. You can share your own story with me over on scarystory.com, and if you want to support the show, try out Scary, plus you'll also get ad-free episodes. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon, everyone. Please listen to the story, Demon in the Barn, while exploring an abandoned farmhouse in rural California. Two friends came face to face with something dark, an encounter so chilling that it still haunts them. Decades later, my name is Edwin, and here is Dory's true scary story. I grew up on my grandparents' and great-grandparents' property in the Central Valley of California. In the 1800s, my family settled there. I'm not sure how they got the land. I think they got it from the Native American Indian tribe. That was in the area. I think it was the Miwoks. My great-grandparents built a big, huge custom home on the property. Had peach orchards, then walnut orchards, almond orchards. Then my grandparents built a big ranch house on that property as well. When I was a teenager, we moved onto the property, onto a separate house next to my grandparents' house. So we spent a lot of time outside. I had horses and whatnot. Our property was 40 acres, and we were up on a bluff. The bluff overlooked the top of walnut orchards. So we would go down, especially in the summertime. We'd either ride the horses or walk, and we'd take this one road that went straight down, of almost a mile, and our property ended at the river, to a day where this story comes into play. This summer, my friend and I, we were going to walk down there just killing time. We usually went to the east. This time I said, let's go to the west. Because last week, when I was with another friend riding our horses, I rode past this old house that was sitting back off the river, off the road. You could tell from the road far away it's abandoned. I said, let's go check it out, see if there's anything cool there. So we start walking down there. It's a small little white wooden, one-bedroom little square house. Immediately behind it is a very large wooden barn. It was clear that this house was probably built like in the 20s, turn of the century. It's an old, dilapidated house. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's just, for as far as you can see in any direction, it's just orchards. So as we were approaching it, we were being kind of quiet because we didn't know if there were. Like any other random people out there. We were just two girls. So we wanted to be careful that we weren't going to bump into some scary dudes down there. So we kind of did a big circle around the barn in this house to make sure nobody was there. And we were quiet as we were doing it. This barn is massive, huge barn, the size of a 2-story building. But there was no second story in it. It was just really high rafters. The doors to the barn were slid open. There was probably maybe a 5 or 6 feet space between the back wall of where the house was and the back wall of the barn. And the barn was totally intact. There was nothing wrong with it. It was that thing was solid. The house, on the other hand, half of the walls, one half of the house. There were no walls left. Trees had crashed into it. Branches, the leaves were everywhere. The front part of it was intact. But the back wall of the house and the back, right side of the house, the walls were gone. But you can still see kind of the footing. 3/4 of the wall will still stand. We go around to the back of this barn as we were making our loop around to make sure no one is there. There's an old tractor, completely covered by the weeds and dry grass, 20 feet, 30 feet away from the barn behind us. As we're facing these barn doors, we're looking inside of it. You could tell it's not used anymore. There's cobwebs from ceiling to floor, dust motes floating through the air. It was late in the afternoon, sun shining through. Everything is covered in this real fine layer of dust. It's clear no one uses this barn. On the right-hand side of the barn, there was like a workbench that just had odds and ends of stuff that people just never used anymore. Old tools and cans and bottles, suitcases. Not a whole lot of stuff, but it was. There was nothing really of any value over there. On the left-hand side of the barn was big railroad ties. Those heavy wooden railroad ties. Probably 20 or 30 of them. But it probably took up. Like 15 feet long by maybe 4 feet high. They were just stacked, not very neatly. You could tell they'd been there for years and years. And years and years. Cobwebs all over them. Hay all over them. Dust, and there were barrel hoops thrown on top of them. And pieces of wire. It used to be maybe a grape vineyard that was in the empty fields that were around us. They also had peach orchards down there. So there was a lot of old orchard equipment, wooden things and metal rings and wire. And then at the back left corner, all the way up to, actually the whole back wall of the barn, was hay bales that had fallen apart and were just piled up there. It was probably 5 feet high, by maybe the width of the house. There must have been tons of bales of hay there, that fallen apart over 10 or 20 years, and it's just laying there covered in dust, covered in cobwebs. So as we walk through, we're kind of breaking through a few cobwebs, and I'm afraid of spiders. So I'm giggling about, I don't want to see any spiders. And we walk around and we're looking. Maybe we'll see some old cool tool or some old cool bottle or something interesting. Fun old antique. What not to take with us. We walk around in there. We don't see anything of interest. And we walk back out. We go around to the front of the house. On the front porch is a whole bunch of old, abandoned washers and dryers. And from probably the 50s. As we get into the main part of this little square house, we walked into where there used to be a wall. But there was no more wall there. It was only about 2 feet high, like the foundation. And the bottom part of the wall was there. My friend goes in, and as we walk into the house, if we were standing in the dead center of this perfect square, we were both looking at the back wall of this barn, because there's no wall there to the house. The wall of that house was gone. To the left is a kitchen. You can walk into this little tiny kitchen, and then going on that side also is one little bedroom, and I stayed right where I was, in the center of this house, and I was looking at what was probably the living room. And there was no wall there. There was a pile of just junk on the ground. There's also branches, leaves. Everything kind of mixed up in this pile of junk. So my friend goes to the front part. She's looking through the other rooms, and I'm looking into this pile. And as I'm kind of using a stick, and I'm pushing things around to see what's in this pile, I see this staff like a walking stick. It's probably about 4 or 5 feet long, and it is intricately carved. Derek's carving over every inch of it. It's very detailed, ornate. Carving. And so I'm like poking it with a stick. Looking at it, squinting, like, what is that? My friend calls me kind of in a panic. I startle and I go, kind of hustling back to the front part of the house, where she is. A lizard scared her or something. I said, come here. You gotta see what's in this pile. This thing's cool. So, we walk back to where I was standing at this pile, and from where we're standing, we are probably 5 or 6 feet from the back wall of the barn. If you've ever been in an old barn, or like an old wooden fence, you could see kind of through the cracks of the wood, just a little tiny bit. You can see through the cracks of the wood. And so I get to that pile and I'm like, look, there's this stack here. I start poking around in the pile and there's nothing there. It's not there. And she goes, what? What did you see? And I said, there was this stick. And as soon as I started talking about it, there came a sound from inside that barn that was so deafeningly loud. It sounded like somebody had dropped a freight train inside that barn. The ground shook, and it was like whatever was at the back of the barn, where the doors were. It was like a train, or it was louder than a truck. It was whatever it was. It was so loud it was barreling into the barn so fast, so furious you could hear the wood flying. You could hear those barrel rings flying. You could hear the railroad ties flying. You could hear the hay, everything scattering in there. The walls were shaking. The ground was shaking. The air was just reverse. It was so loud, everything just moving in there. And then, whatever it was, hit the back of the wall of that barn, right in front of us, eye level. And you could just hear this guttural growl and breathing on the other side of this wall. And this wasn't a person. This wasn't a car. This was a sound that I can't even describe how incredibly loud this was. We're both frozen, staring at this wall. Through the slats of this wall, we start to kind of inch our way to the right, to kind of walk out away from this house. Staring at the wall as we do, you can tell something's on the other side of the wall. You can see it. Dust is kind of coming through the slats of the wood. You could see eyes through those slats, but you can't make out the shape. You could see something on the other side of the wall. It was dark black. The eyes were like a yellowish, then kind of red. As we started facing the wall, slowly inching our way out of the house, not taking our eyes off of this wall. It's still breathing and following us, and you could hear things moving on the other side of that wall. We come around where there's a clearing, and we take off running. We don't look back. We take off running, and we must have ran 3/4 of a mile before one of us just literally collapses on the ground for running so fast. We look at each other. We look around. Make sure nothing's following. Nothing's following us. We look at each other. What the heck just happened? And we start reliving and recounting what we saw. What we heard when we both first started talking. We couldn't believe what had just happened. Party you wanted to say, this can't be what I thought it was. So as I start explaining what I saw, my friend Jennifer starts finishing my sentences, and I'm doing the same for her. Like, did you see the skin? It looked like it was leather. Did you see his eyes? Yeah. The eyes were red. What was that? We saw. Why was that so loud? What? How was that barn still standing? As we're sitting there, catching our breath, another friend who's like a younger brother to me comes up, because he was going down to the river to go fishing. He's like, "What are you guys doing?" We tell him what happened. He's like, "You guys are full of crap. There's nothing there. You guys are crazy." I'm like, "Dude, I am not kidding you. I have never lied to you. I am not joking." He was like, "All right, then show me." We get up. We start walk back there. I said, "I'll walk back there, but I'm not going in there again. I'm never going back in there." So we walk back over there, take a big wide berth around it, but we go back to where the barn. I said, "I just want to see what." "You go in that barn and you'll see there is. That place is torn to shreds." So we get to the very back, and I'm far away, and I'm looking at the inside side of this barn, and it looks like exactly like it did when we first got there. There's still cobwebs hanging on the ceiling. Everything's in the exact same place. Nothing has been moved. No dust's askew anywhere. It's exactly the same. I tell him, I was like, "Hey, go over there in that house and go look in that pile over there and see if there's a long stick in that." Set him in there like a guinea pig, and he's stupid. So he went in there and he's like, "There's nothing in here. There's just trash in here. There's old cans and like leaves and trash. And there's nothing in here." "What are you talking about?" I go back, I start doodling. Later that evening, I'm like doodling. Like I can't picture the images that were on that stick, but I've never seen anything like it. Later, as Jennifer and I talk about that years later, and for days after that, the only thing I can say to describe what we saw was a demon. I have a hard time telling the story to people, because no one's going to believe you. But at that time, I didn't watch scary stories. I was raised in a very religious family. We weren't allowed to talk about that stuff, be involved in that stuff. Like it was not part of my world, part of just my experience. It wasn't something I was looking for, wasn't anything I was expecting. But I know what I saw, and it was from that point on that it really made me wonder what else is out there, because I can't explain what I heard and what I saw. Since that time, as an adult, now, it has made me interested in what else is out there. There's something else that goes on in our world. That's more than just, flesh and bone. There's something else out there. So I've been interested in reading and studying, trying to figure out, but a little bit afraid of finding out exactly what I saw since that day. There are very few things that actually scare me. Almost everything else is tangible. You can fight your way out of it. There was no fighting. You knew you were completely powerless to this. That terrified me to my core. To share your story with us, head on over to True Scary Story. And fill out the form. And if you know of somebody who might like this podcast, send it to them. Links are in your app and in the description of this episode. And if you want to support the show and listen without ads, try out Scary Plus. It's free for 2 whole weeks and then $4.99 a month. You can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary. Everyone, see you soon. Please listen to the story, 3 Chilling Paranormal Encounters. My name is Edwin, and here are Diana's, Vanessa's, and Adrian's true scary stories. Growing up when I was little, we used to go to Mexico every summer. We are from the state of Juarez, Mexico. My grandparents used to own a plot of land. Technically, they still own it, but they passed away a few years ago. And so my aunts and uncles still live there. There's about 5 houses on that plot of land. Their main house and then the other 4 houses. My family's land is actually built on top of a cemetery, and so there's always been different stories of things that they've seen, things that have happened. My dad owned the house that was located nearest to where you know this cemetery is. They would always hear banging on the walls. My mom, who was a non-believer of anything paranormal, one time stayed there, and she was woken up in the middle of the night with banging all on the walls, and it wasn't just on once, it was just all over the house, just banging all over the house. During breakfast time with everybody around, she's like, yeah, I didn't get good sleep last night because there was banging on the walls, Maybe something happened with the neighbor, and she was using the hammer. And they're like, no, that's actually very common in that house. As a matter of fact, my other uncle who lives a house over has also heard those bangings. And so he came out in the middle of the night to see who was, causing chaos out there. He brought some type of weapon out with him just to make sure he had, something to protect himself with, because he really thought it was a person. And he said he went all around that house and did not find anybody there. My grandma had gone to a flea market out in Mexico, and she bought a dresser with an attached mirror to it at this flea market intended for my uncle. She took it to my uncle's house. They had it set up some time passed by. One night my uncle was asleep and something woke him up. He felt this uneasy feeling, like somebody was just looking at him. He woke up, and he was kind of scanning the room. It's dark. He can't really see anything. He's still half asleep, and in the corner of the room, he sees a little boy who's about anywhere from 8 to 10 years old. He's just looking at him, and he tries to call out to him to get his attention. Little boy is not moving. He's not doing anything other than just staring at my uncle, so my uncle decides to grab, like his cover or a pillow to throw at him to. Get a reaction out of this little boy to see what are you doing in my room? The little boy jumps from where he was to the dresser and disappears into the mirror. Fast forward maybe the next summer. My adult cousin and her son, who was at the time around that same age, went to Mexico to visit for the summertime. We all know we all go back home to visit for vacation. My uncle lends her his room so she could sleep in there with her kid in the middle of the night at around the same time. Her little boy starts shaking her mommy. Mommy, mommy. Wake up, there's a little boy. Oh, mijo. Go to sleep, go to sleep. You're dreaming, there's nothing there, mommy. Mommy. There's a little boy, and he's smiling at me, and his teeth are ugly. No, mijo. There's nothing there, go back to sleep. Finally, he gives up, and he goes back to sleep. During breakfast the next morning, my cousin is complaining of how tired she is because her little boy didn't let her sleep. And they are telling the story to my uncle, who's in a house that belongs to, and my grandma. And so my uncle and my grandma kind of just stare at each other because they know what happened to him. She goes on to tell them that, yeah, he kept trying to wake me up, that there was a little boy in the room, and that the little boy was smiling at him. And my uncle is like, well, that kind of happened to me too. He proceeds to tell her his story. Needless to say, my cousin and her son did not sleep there. The following night, that same dresser and mirror ends up in the possession of an aunt of mine here in the United States. My aunt, very superstitious. She had gone to see like a witch doctor, at this time. The mirror and the dresser are put away in the garage. She knows the story of this mirror. Why she has possession of this mirror, I don't know, even though she knows the story. Anyway, she goes and sees a witch doctor for unrelated reasons. And this witch doctor gives her this little blanket, which is like a little pillow. A green one and a red one. One was intended for like luck, and the other one was intended for money. And she always carried these little pillows with her, in her purse. One day she was rummaging through her purse, and she notices that those pillows are gone. At the time, my aunt had, teenage sons. And so she kind of confronted them about it and was like, hey, you guys were going through my purse. My little pillows are gone. Why were you guys going through my purse? They all deny. They're like, no, Mom. It wasn't us, we didn't do anything like that. They end up finding those pillows by the mirror in the garage, and no idea how they got there. Once that happened to her specifically, that's when they're like, okay, no, we need to get rid of this mirror. Something is wrong with this mirror. We got it at a flea market. It's in Mexico, so something or somebody must have done something to this mirror that, would have caused like this little boy to get stuck in there. And so ultimately, that's what led to their decision to get rid of that mirror. Everything stopped, like there was no other occurrences with a little boy or anything going missing after they broke it. Essentially, we've always been scared that that land was built over a cemetery, because there's been other like small occurrences that have happened, but I think that's the creepiest one. This took place May of 2015. Me and my husband were going to New Orleans for the first time. We have a timeshare thing, so we were able to get a 2-story room. We were going to be there for 2 whole weeks. For whatever reason, they would not let us stay in the same room. For both weeks, we had to stay in one room for 1 week, and then they had to check us out and put us in another room for the second week. This happened the last Friday that we were there, on the first week, if that makes sense. When checking into the room at first, you're looking at it and it's so cool. It totally looked like what you would think New Orleans would look like. It had like brick wall. There was weird kind of paintings in there. And I remember even walking in there. I was taking pictures and showing the video and everything. Walking throughout everything. I remember walking upstairs and getting like I don't know about this. I brush it off. Because we were new arrivals for the first time. I was super excited. There was a second room in there too. I just didn't like it. I don't want to be in here by myself type thing. The last night that we were there in the first room, I knew that I was dreaming. Because I remember we were in the master bedroom. Like I said, this was like a 2-story room. I remember sitting up in my bed, and I kept hearing things. I felt like it was cabinets opening and closing. Opening closings and doors. Opening and closing, opening and closing. I knew no one was in our room. It was just me and my husband. I knew my husband was in the bathroom. I don't know how I knew that, but I knew that my husband was in the bathroom. I was sitting in bed, and I asked, hey, are you not hearing this? When I said that, I felt something pull my leg. I freaked out. All of a sudden, I felt like someone grabbed both my ankles and pulled me down. When they pulled my ankles down, I lay flat on my back on my bed. When I woke up, I couldn't move. I couldn't move like at all. The only thing I could move was my eyelids. I was like, what is going on? I was in the exact same room we were sleeping in. So the first dream took place in the room. When I woke up and couldn't move, I knew I was in the room, and I knew. I could see my husband laying right next to me, in arm's length. All of a sudden, I remember two different things or entities. I don't know what they were, but I felt one hand on one shoulder and another hand on my other shoulder. They were holding me down. It wasn't hard, but I could feel them hold me down. The only thing I can remember is them looking, like the Monet painting of the screaming person. All I saw was they were like misty, and all I saw was like two eye sockets and a long face. I couldn't move anything but my eyelids. For the life of me, I just wanted for him to wake me up, because he was right next to me in bed. All of a sudden, I hear both of those entities. In my voice, in my own voice. I felt like they were making fun of me. I felt like they were mocking me. Like, how you can't talk, how you can't talk. I could feel myself wanting to cry. I just closed my eyes. I was praying to Jesus. I was praying to God, Holy Spirit. I was praying to everybody. My dad had passed 3 years prior. So I even called out to my dad like, Dad, if you can hear me, please. I had called out even to my grandfather, my paternal grandfather who had died in 2012. I was like, please help me, please. As soon as I called out to my grandfather, within maybe 10 seconds, I woke up. I was able to wake up. I immediately woke up my husband, and I was like, I just had a bad dream. I didn't want to tell him everything, because I knew he was dead asleep. So he just comforted me. But I ended up praying for the next 20 minutes, and just thanking God that I was able to wake up from that dream. That was the scariest thing that I ever experienced. I ended up telling my mom at least a year later. She freaked that she was like, what? Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. She totally believed me though. She's like, I'm sorry that happened to you. I remember the resort that we were staying at was called the Quarter House. It was built in 1830. I know it was really old, and I thought that was really cool because I was like, oh my God, we're staying in a fairly old building. I love history of stuff, but I did not think that that was going to happen. I just thought it was cool because it was really old. If I would have known it was haunted, I would not stay because I'm like such a scaredy cat. Even to this day, I have dreams within dreams, but they're not like that, but they're not like that, but where I wake up like sleep paralysis. But I've had dreams within dreams. This happened to me 19 or 20 years ago. I'm 38 years old. I come from a Hispanic family, and we tend to be friends with our cousins because we have so many of them. I would hang out with a girl cousin of mine very often. One day, she invited me over. Her mom had got a new place. I hadn't been there. I took a bus across town to get to this address. When I got there, my cousin was there with her older sister. Right away, they're like, hey, glad you're here. We were just about to go to the store. Do you want to go with us? I was done with the California heat. And I was like, no, I'll stay here. And she says, great. My daughter, she's asleep. Keep an eye on her. We're just going to go to the corner convenience store. When we get back, they leave, and I stay there watching TV. As soon as they leave, the door closed. The little girl sits up and starts asking me over and over again, where's my mommy at? Where's my mommy at? I would answer her every time. It's almost as if she just didn't hear me. Speaking to her, and would continue to ask. After a while, I just figured, I'm just going to watch TV. Sit here, little girl, still asking me the same questions. But it could have been 15 or 20 minutes. I hear the metal door, it swings open. Makes that sound that you hear on these doors. Then I can hear the wooden door swing open. Then I hear my cousin. She's laughing, as if they're joking. She says, "Ha, Joanna." I hear what sounds like a plastic bag landing on a wooden table. The exact sound you hear of a cheap corner store bag. I look at the little girl and I respond to her. "Your mom's home." I walk into the kitchen. There's absolutely nobody there. The doors are closed. Everything's closed. There's nothing there. I walk right back to the room thinking, what did I hear? What's going on? The little girl's still sitting there, but now she's staring at me. She starts asking me all over again. Where her mommy's at, she's probably asked me 15, 20 times where her mom's at. In the same tone over and over again. A few minutes later, I hear the wooden door rubbing across the floor. I hear my cousin again laughing, and I hear her say, "Ah." F in Joanna. I hear the bag with the soda hit the table. I'm too scared to get up. I sit there for a minute. I'm not saying anything to a girl. She's still asking me for her mother. All of a sudden, my cousin pops her head around the corner. I jump up, run to the kitchen, and I tell her, "I heard that you guys came. But you weren't here." Both my cousin and her older sister just staring at me, like it's not a big deal. After I tell them what happens to me, they tell me when my mother gets home, "We want you to tell her what happened to you." An hour or two pass. My aunt gets home and she's not surprised. She starts telling me that when she first moved into that house, my aunt, at that time, she was a single mother. When they first moved into that house, she would constantly catch her daughter in her closet, going through the boxes making a mess. My aunt, getting tired of telling her to get out of the closet, she tells her, "What are you doing in there? Why do you keep going in my closet? And what are you searching for?" Her daughter looked at her and told her, "The little girl is telling me that there's toys in here. That's why I'm in here." She tells me she spoke to the owner as she asked him, "There's been weird things happening in this house. Has anybody ever said anything? Or told you anything the owner himself was like? I've had a hard time keeping this place rented. I have heard some things I don't believe too much. I haven't experienced anything myself." He never stayed there. He said that. There was a family that had passed away in that home. A mother and a father, and they had a daughter. They had passed away in that house. My aunt lived there for a number of years. But one thing that had happened to my aunt there, she was dating a man for a while, and they would go out. Sometimes he'd go out on his own. She'd stay home. One night, he had gone out with his friends. She stayed home. She had work. She was tired. She fell asleep in the living room on the couch. Late at night, she woke up to the sounds of somebody getting there. She saw the figure of who she thought was her boyfriend, coming home from a night out with his friends. She said, "I just glanced and told them, 'You're going to sit with me.' And she gave him space at the end of the couch. She saw this figure sit down. Later on, at 3 a.m, there was knocking at the door. She gets up, opens the door. It's her boyfriend, just getting home and being dropped off by his friends. I know other people that things happen to in that house. My sister has a story when she graduated high school. She took one of her high school friends to that house. My mother had gone to the casino with that aunt. This girl, she felt strange sitting in the living room. She kept glancing to her left, where there was a small bathroom. The door looked like it was trying to open. She couldn't hear anything, but the light was on, and then it was open. When she glanced back, the door was still open, but now there was a doll sitting on the sink, and face out of the bathroom. A lot of our family have known that things were happening at that house. I talked to one of my other cousins before I did this interview, and he was even like, yeah, everybody that's been there knows that. There's something weird going on at this house. Everybody doesn't experience the same thing there. But everybody there says that they can feel something there, watching you. You get this feeling as if something's waiting. It's waiting to do something to you. After that happened to me, I would feel uneasy in there. Years ago, I remember trying to look it up about the internet, probably 20 years ago when I was 19. I never really found anything. I know when I looked up the house, I know this house gets rented quite often because it's not a very nice house. Super tiny. It almost looks like a studio with an extra room. I don't think people stay that long. My aunt was one of those people. She was older. She believes in God and everything. It's where she's like, watch. Just pray. Things will leave me alone. But she didn't want to stay there. After a while, she felt like something was trying to be on top of her, hold her down. She needed a struggle, and she got up, caught her breath and stuff. Like that. I had heard stuff like that from that house. I remember seeing an old house being remodeled, our neighbor's house. There would always be stories about this house being haunted. They would rent it. I never saw anything myself. What made me believe, I think, if at all maybe people do sense things, is the neighbors would always say, this little house was haunted. It shared the property light with our house the day that we were remodeling it. I'm probably like in the 6th grade and I'm being nosy. I'm out there, all of a sudden I see that one of the contractor guys. He's like, hey, everybody stop. Go call the owner, because we need to figure something out. They're telling me to go away. I'm like, number. I'm on my property, you can tell me. Go away. Under the house that'd been in that house. They had a cement floor. They had to redo it, because they had cracked. When they lifted up the cement, I'm standing there when they lifted up the cement. There was a human skeleton. It still had clothes on, a flannel shirt and jeans. I remember clearly. I saw construction workers pick up the bones, throw it in the garbage, and continue working. The girls that lived in there, they would see things upstairs and hear sound. I don't know if maybe that has something to do with that, but that's what I saw at that home. When you're a kid, you don't think about these things. But as an adult, I can remember, because it was such a big deal. Like I was like, oh, my God, they found a dead person. But when I think back on what they were doing at that house, when I tell you they found him under the cement, the foundation, they didn't dig. He was in between the poured cement and the dirt. It wasn't like an old burial site or anything. If you picked up a broken piece of cement on the street, it was like right there. I remember seeing hair. It was old, and it bunched up. Almost a red, brownish color. Like bronze. That's what I saw. So it was like the skeleton that's still. It had hair there. It had a flannel shirt on. Obviously all beat up and the colors faded. But the jeans, I guess I don't know. I remember seeing the jeans. You think stuff like that would fall apart. They had holes in it, but it was still pretty intact. I remember him reaching for the leg. I had jeans on, but when he pulled, the bones that you have in your waist area, you can see them separate. the long leg bone was still in the pan. So then, they had to pick up the bones individually and throw them away. I remember looking up that. But later as an adult, I didn't know when that house was built, even where to start looking to even think anything. But how many more people are under cement slabs somewhere? This house was on a corner lot. My aunt owned this property. These are older neighborhoods in Fresno, where you had more land. At some point, my aunt, or whoever owned the house before her, they had built a small studio apartment right behind her house and to the right. They built a 2-story, 2-bedroom. It was shaped like a little square. They had built that there. One of my other aunts was staying in the house, right behind her, and they were renting the 2-story one. The reason why they had lifted the floor was because apparently the foundation of the house wasn't sitting right anymore. There were cracks on the walls. The house was shifting, I guess. They had to pour the cement on the base floor of the house, rip up the old stuff and throw it away, and then pour new cement. I remember in their living room right there, where they'd sit and watch TV all the time, was where that crack was. And that's where the body was under that crack. The foundation cracked where that dead body was. Up next, be sure to check out my other podcast called Scary Story Podcast. And if you're into more historical and mysteries, stuff like that, be sure to check out Horror Story. I'll see you over there if you want to support the show. Head on over to Scary Plus. Calm as always. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon, everyone. Please listen to the story, Something Evil Lurks in My Grandmother's House. In Iki Uch. I was roughly 5 or 6 years old. Me and my family had just gotten back from a vacation. In Texas, we all stayed at my grandmother's house because it was closer than ours. And almost everybody was exhausted from the long drive. I had slept off and on in the car, so I was almost wide awake, but not fully. It was around, I want to say, 2 a.m., and I was in the living room watching one of my DVDs. I got through about half of it, and I heard the poor creak from upstairs. Then footsteps came down the stairs, and they stopped at the bottom, and there was another creak in the kitchen. I figured it was my cousin, because he would always come downstairs and get, like a midnight snack or something. But after a few minutes, I didn't hear him go back up. It was around 15 minutes later. The kitchen floor creaked again, heavier and louder before. At the time, there was no possible way for the floor to creak that much under his footsteps. My parents would always tell me that it was just my imagination whenever I would hear certain sounds. So I believed them at the time. I ignored it for a minute, and out of nowhere, everything in the room just felt heavy. I turned around, and I looked into the kitchen. That was the first time I saw it. It was staring directly back at me. It was a big, black, shadowy mass. It had very light, small piercing to red dots, which I'm just assuming were its eyes. It had a face, however. It was just blurry and disoriented. I tried to scream, but no sound came out because I was just that terrified. It didn't move at all. It was just standing there in the corner. After a few minutes, it just disappeared through that door. That's right next to the stairs. That leads to our laundry room. It went just straight through the closed door. I ran straight upstairs. Once that heavy feeling was gone, I stayed in my parents' room for that night. I didn't sleep. We went back to our house. A couple days later, that's when I mentioned to my mom exactly what I had saw. Her response was the same as it always was. It's just your imagination. We'll make sure your cousin stops watching scary movies around you. I didn't sleep well for about a month after that. At this point, I had grown insomnia and sleep paralysis from seeing this thing. Looking back at it, I feel like she believed me. However, at that time, I think that she just didn't want to scare me. She started to burn sage around the house almost daily. I never knew exactly why at the time, but the shadow person went away. One experience that I had, without that same shadowy mass, thing was just shadows around the house. If I went into the kitchen or something, I would see one in the corner of my eye. But whenever I would turn my head, it would just go back behind the wall it was, or go back behind whatever it was behind in the first place, almost as if it didn't want to be seen. It was the day of my 12th birthday. Everything went well, and I had the average birthday party that a 12-year-old would have. All my family, my friends, it was just a big party. Everybody had left already because it was around 11 p.m. I was in bed, almost about to fall asleep. I decided to turn on my TV. I don't know why, but I fell asleep. I woke up, I felt like I couldn't breathe correctly. And the energy in the room, once I became aware, it felt the same as it had before. At my grandmother's house, I opened my eyes. That is when I saw it for the second time. It was standing at the edge of my bed this time, just staring back at me, with the same red eyes as it had before. My door across the room from me slammed. I screamed and my mom rushed in. Within a matter of seconds, it was gone. My mom was yelling, "What happened? What happened? Are you okay?" Just over and over and over. And then she sat on the bed with me, trying to comfort me. I looked at her, and her face was just pale. I had 3 long scratches on my chest and bruising around my neck that almost looked like fingerprints. The first thing she said after noticing these things was, "You're not sleeping in here anymore," after about a week of me not sleeping in my bedroom anymore. She decided to start cleansing again. That didn't work this time. I don't think it was enough. My parents began arguing, which wasn't like them. They've always been a very happy couple. At that point, they were together for a little over 20 years. Everybody in the house just became extremely negative. Within a few months, they had gotten divorced. I remember 2 months after they divorced. My mom had called my grandma to come over. I had no idea what they were talking about. But after that, my mom just became severely religious. She would constantly pray over me in my room. She would constantly bless the house. She was doing more sage than before. She had put up crosses everywhere in the house, and it was just a constant cycle. We continued this for months, and at this time, she got sick. It was cancer, which came completely out of nowhere, like cancer usually does. The timing of it just wound up a little bit too much. That's when she decided that we are going to need professional help. She started getting a priest to come around because she didn't have the energy from the chemo to do everything like she was before. So he would bless the house twice a week. I think it was, and he would bless my cousin. He would bless me, my mom, just everything. It seemed to be helping, but it was just too much. I think for everybody. And my cousin ended up moving out. He was 17. Me and my mother were still severely negative. But after he left the house, about a week after he was just back to his normal self, I was still having the same shadow. The ones that just hide when I look at them. They never would scare me. So I wasn't necessarily scared of them, because there wasn't any bad energy. When I would see them, unlike with the other thing, it was a Sunday morning and my mom had woken me up, way earlier than she normally would, and me being a very moody teenager. I was like, "Ma, what do you want?" And then she said this, in a tone that was just heart-stopping, if that makes sense. Because my mom isn't a very serious person. She's always been very bubbly. Like I was before all of this happened. She sat on my bed on the edge of it and she was like, "We need to talk." This was the moment that changed everything for me, for the rest of my life, including today. The first thing that she said was, "I believe you." My jaw dropped pretty much. She finally had told me what her and my grandmother had spoken about. That day, she told me what my grandma had done years prior to their conversation. It was the 70s. She had wronged a lady, and the lady had threatened to curse us. That would follow through. The women in the bloodline. It obviously didn't want to believe it. But my mom was very shaken up as she was telling me this. She described the same shadowy figure, like the one that had the very heavy energy. She described that to a team, and we had been seeing the same exact thing. It's just been a pattern. My mother has a sister as well, a twin sister, and she had a baby girl that is my cousin, and the same thing happened to her. I almost had a sense of relief, because I wasn't the only one. My grandma hadn't mentioned anything to my mom until that one day they sat down and had to talk. This was the point where everything slightly goes blank. I don't remember much from that day, but right after she told me that information, then she let me know that it's not gonna go away, and that it's never gonna go away. Anyone who knew me knows that I have always wanted to be a mother. So when my mother told me that I wasn't going to be able to have a baby girl without risking her having the same trauma, and that seeing that same figure as us, to say the least, I was very heartbroken. After I learned that it was bloodline related, I moved out and I moved into a small house now. I'm now 21 and I am married. I still see that shadowy mass pretty frequently because I'm not cleansing the house like my mother and the priest were doing before to make everything stop. I was going to church, but that was all I could really do. So I have now come to terms with the fact that this is not gonna go away, and I'm still gonna see that same thing, regardless to what I do. Considering it's only physically harmed me once, I just don't bother with it. When I see it, I'm obviously terrified, but I feel as though it can't really hurt me anymore, because I'm not letting it. When the first and the last physical attack happened, I was 12, so I feel as though I couldn't really force it not to hurt me. But now that I am older and I have matured more, it just stands in the corner now. I still have minor experiences with the shadow people who duck behind the doors, but I'm still not getting anything bad from them. I think they're just lost, honestly, and they're not quite sure how to move on. I am no longer living in Arizona. I visit pretty frequently, just because my mother is here. I'm so haunted by this on a daily basis, and I hope that my story would help somebody who's going through something similar that is borderline related, would make them feel less alone, which is the whole reason why I'm sharing this. You can support the shows and stories by trying out Scary Plus or dropping some stars for us in the reviews. If you liked it, don't forget to tap follow so you get next week's story. If you want to share a story with the rest of us, head on over to truescarystory.com. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Man on the Moon. My story takes place starting in 2013. We've been in this apartment for less than a year. My son was 5 years old. He's 16 now. It always seemed like he would have night terrors. He would start crying in his sleep, making weird noises. We would just hear him whimpering. We really didn't know what was going on. It started getting a little bit more intense. He started screaming and yelling. This would always happen between 11:30 and 12, when I would be getting ready to go to bed. We would go in the room, his body would be straight. It looked like somebody pulled his legs. His feet would go flat, and his hands would be to his side. But he was still sleeping, and he would be screaming. The screaming will last for about 5 minutes, and we lived in an apartment building complex. So, I always thought that people would think that we were doing something to my son, and he was screaming. After that, he would always yawn and turn right back around and sleep peacefully for the rest of the night. We were dealing with this for about 2 months. His doctor told me that it was probably him getting into his REM sleep stage, and that we should let him rest and not look at TV or anything for at least 30 to 45 minutes before bed so that he can settle down. Then it just never stopped. One night I was walking past his room. It was completely dark in there. He had a little night light that was behind his dresser, so it kind of illuminated the walls. It wasn't enough to be super bright. When I was walking towards the room, because I heard him whining, I saw some figure standing over by his bed. In a panic, I turned on the light, but it was nothing there. I definitely saw a figure standing next to his bed while he was starting the whining stage. Time has gone by. Now I'm in my room, and I hear like lullaby music. Like I said, I live in an apartment complex, so I thought maybe it was coming from the other apartment. I turned the TV down, and when I was starting to walk towards his room, I saw a dark figure move from the side of his bed. Over to the dresser, the lullaby music stopped. Now I knew that I wasn't seeing things this time. So I just went in there, I snatched him out of his room, and I went back in my room, and we waited for my husband to come home, because it was just me and my son in the house. We were in the living room one day watching TV. I heard the toilet seat slam down. No one else was in the house. We were all in the front. I went back over to the bathroom and said, "Oh, maybe the toilet seat just fell." When I went back there, the toilet seat was actually still up. It never fell down. But you can hear the noise that it slammed shut. So now I just started being freaked out in my house. I didn't want to say anything to my family. The only person that knew about it was my husband at the time, and then we had a cat. So I kind of kept saying that, oh, maybe the cat went by and I saw the shadow of the cat. Or that maybe he was in the bathroom and he hit the toilet seat. So I kept trying to make sense of it myself. It wasn't until one evening, everybody was in their rooms, I went to go take a bath. I was in the bathtub. I decided to lay back, relax. I put my cloth over my face and I was just laying there. And it sounded as though someone opened the bathroom door. But I took it off thinking it was my husband or my son coming in the room, but it was no one there. I closed my eyes and just laid back. Out of nowhere, it felt like someone smacked me in my face. I felt a hand print the burning sensation. I jumped up out of the bathroom, ran out of there, Went to go tell my husband and was like, okay, that's it. At that time, my son started screaming and had another night terror. While I'm panicking trying to talk to my husband, he starts screaming and we had to rush into his room. And it was just one of his regulars, screaming night terrors. But this one got a little bit more intense. It lasted way longer. And I thought he was actually going into a seizure, so we called 911 and have them come out. By the time they got there, of course, my son is fast asleep. And then they had to wake him up to make sure he was okay. He's just looking at us like, "Why are you waking me up? What's going on?" They left, they cleared him. Everything was fine. It was a few days later after that, I decided to ask my son, "Do you remember any of these dreams that you're having at night? Why you're screaming or anything?" And he said no. He doesn't remember any nightmares, or he wasn't scared when he went to sleep, or he didn't think of anything scary. I would never forget those words that came out of my 5-year-old's mouth. He just came out and said, "Oh, I talked to the man on the moon. I talk to him sometimes when I go to bed." I asked him who is the man on the moon, and he said he tells me to do bad things, but I don't want to, and I'm always yelling at him to leave me alone. Sometimes when he gets mad, he sets everything on fire, and he scratches me with a fork on my thumb. I asked him, "What does the man on the moon look like? What is he doing?" And he said, "Oh, he's very big, he's very red, he has a big fork," and he kept saying, "He scratches my thumb with it when I tell him no." I said, "Well, does he ever grab you or catch you or anything?" And he said no. If I say no, he just stabbed me with the fork. The next day, I told my mom. I started telling her everything that was going on. My mom always believed in the Bible, and she believes that there are spirits, and that there are angels and demons walking around. So, that's why I was happy that I was able to talk to her. We went to church that Sunday, and we talked to my priest, and I explained to him the night terrors. I told the doctor they kept saying that children's have active imaginations, but I just felt that there was something else going on because of all the other things that was happening around the priest. He said that my son had a bright aura around him, like he's very protected, and maybe that's why the dreams come, and is trying to break that aura, but it can't get through. So he gave us holy water. He gave us Bible verses that we should recite before he goes to bed when he's saying his prayers. He told us to leave the Bible open on a certain page so we can have that verse after we say it. I was supposed to cross him with holy water, and then we will put a rosary that he gave us under his pillow. Now my son is still 5, so he's really excited about putting the rosary under his pillow. He wants to go to bed and say prayers. The next day, I came into his room, and the pages were turned on the Bible. I asked my husband, "Did you touch the Bible? Did you change it?" He said no. Then, while I was making up his bed, I went to go look for his rosary. I couldn't find the rosary. I asked him, "Did he take the rosary out at night? What did he wake up? Was he scared or anything?" He said no. I was looking all the way, all over the floor. And then I found the rosary under his bed, behind the headboard. Not where he could push it, because he had a toddler bed. So there was no gaps where it would just fall through. Someone had to physically take that rosary and put it under the bed for it to be there. I started panicking about that, I told my mom what was going on again. She said, well, just continue to keep doing it. Every night we would read the Bible verse. We would do the holy water. A month after that, the night terrors completely stopped. I ended up having another baby. We decided it was time to move. I started freaking out. Because the place that we were moving to is kind of behind the cemetery. There's a house in between us and the cemetery. All of those memories started coming back. We ended up moving on December of 2015. My second son was born January 11th. We were in our new apartment. First, started having these strange noises in my house. One night I'm in my room, and I heard the same lullaby song that I heard those many years ago, and I turned on the TV and I thought, I must be losing my mind, I'm paranoid. I went towards the room again. I saw a black figure dart from his crib and the noise stopped. I'm thinking now, the cemetery behind me, the past everything is coming back into play. I start telling my husband, I need to go back to the priest. I need to tell him what's going on. Maybe a week after that, I'm laying in my room and I could not get to sleep because it felt like someone was staring at me from my hallway. I was turning around and I opened my eyes, and next to my dresser, I saw that black figure that I've seen multiple times. This time, it did not vanish. I was staring at it while I was trying to move and tap my husband and let him know that something's there. It flew toward me. The only thing that I could do at that moment was flip over my husband because it lunged toward me so fast. I didn't know what else to do. I ended up flipping over my husband and fell off on the other side of the bed. When he woke up and then was asking me what was wrong, I explained to him what was going on. That black figure that I keep seeing randomly, it's back and it's trying to attack me. I was terrified. I said I was going to go back to the priest, let him know that this is happening all over again. We did the same thing. I had to take the baby to him. They got him baptized. And after that, that was it. Nothing else again, so I don't know if that black figure was trying to soothe the children or if it was something else. But I know it was the same figure that I saw when my first son was 5, and then again when my second son was born. And that's what lunged toward me. So I'm not sure if she was angry with me or someone who just wanted to be by children. But I would feel this presence in my home as if someone was always watching me. But I never saw the figure again. After we went back and blessed the house, got holy water for here. Luckily, things have been much better. I did have another baby since. And those things have always crossed my mind. So my new baby is 2. But I've yet to see the black figure, or hear any weird lullaby songs, or feel as though someone's watching me. It was only with my 2 sons. I don't know if it's different, because now I have a daughter. But whenever I think about what happened to my older son, who's now 16, it just gives me the chills. And I will never forget what he told me. When he was 5 years old, I talked to the man on the moon. To share your own story with our community, visit us at truescarystory.com. And if you want to support what we do, you can try out Scary Plus for free, or drop some stars for us in the reviews. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story Baby Monitor. My name is Sean, and I've actually been on the show before. I told a story about when I experienced some paranormal type situations in my childhood homes, the experiences had dwindled off for most of my early adulthood until around 2020. July of 2020, I lost my mother, shortly after the COVID pandemic had started to peak. My mother took a turn for the worst and passed away unexpectedly. Shortly after that, I found out that I was pregnant. This was not something that me or my boyfriend had planned. It was very unexpected, and I kind of took it as a gift, from my mom, because we had been talking before she passed away about how excited she was at the idea of becoming a grandma. And I told her, I don't even know if I can have kids, so we'll see what happens. And then, shortly after she passed away, I found out I was pregnant. We were in a 1-bedroom apartment at this point, and we decided that it was time to try to find ourselves actual house, a space where we would be able to grow as a family. And I started house shopping. We were looking for houses for months, but then one came on the market. That happened to be on the same street that my childhood home that I had originally experienced a lot of the paranormal activities was on. I decided to go take a look around. There wasn't anything particularly special about it yet. There was something that drew me to it. I can't explain what it was, but there was just an energy in the house that pulled me to decide to try to convince my husband that this is the house that we need to buy. He was not a fan, but when it came down to it, everything seemed good about it. There wasn't, a whole lot that had to be done to the house. Before we moved in, so we decided to put down our offer, and we got the house. December of 2021, we moved into the home, and that first night, things got weird. I actually can't recall entirely what happened. That night, it happened to me, and I was in a state that I can't really explain. So I'm gonna let my husband, Gordon, take over for a moment. The first night in the house was a hectic one. Unpacked everything as we could, and we were decided, let's just go to sleep. We're all exhausted. Let's just go to sleep and relax. And we're laying there, we finally pass out. Felt like minutes. Early morning comes and I feel this jolt on my chest. Like something hit me. I look over to my right. My girlfriend at the time is right next to me. She looks funny. Her eyes are open, but she's not really saying anything. She's kind of just looking at me, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's not responding. It was strange for a second or two. And I was just trying to, nudge her and stuff. And all of a sudden, she's just starts speaking in tongues almost, saying different names I didn't recognize. She was speaking multiple languages all at once. It's a very strange situation. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's having a stroke or something. I wasn't even sure. So I'm okay, so try to wake her up or something. So I'm just trying to wake her up, and she's just flapping her arms around and yelling and trying to get my attention, even though I'm literally staring at her. It felt like she was almost possessed or something, like she was being taken over by something. This is early in the morning too. Sun's barely coming up, so I'm trying to hold her up. I physically had to hold her up with my shoulder in the bed to try to keep her up without laying down, trying to shove apple juice into her throat. And finally, as I get probably a cup and a half down her throat, she's finally kind of saying English words. The weirdest part is, she had no recollection of anything. We had full different language conversations, trying to decipher what we were trying to say to each other, but she was just only halfway there. and her eyes were just glazed over. One of the weirdest situations I've ever experienced in my life. The weirdest part about it was that the only thing that I can recall was feeling like I was freezing, and I was trying to tell Gordon, "I'm so cold, Gordon. I'm so cold," but the words wouldn't come out. And that's all I remember from that experience. I finally kind of came to. And he told me that that had all happened. I thought I was just having like a bad dream. And then from there, I just proceeded to experience other weird events. One in particular that still sits very heavy with me was, we had probably been in the house 3 or 4 months. At this point, I had moved my son into his room. He was around 8 or 9 months old, and that was really hard for me, because when we were in the apartment, we had one of those side-sitting cribs, and he was right there next to me. And the doctor was like, "Well, you need to get him in his own room, in his own crib, and just being in this new environment." It was difficult for me. So there were a lot of nights where I would wake up very easily from like the slightest noise, the slightest creak in the floor, anything like that. And my husband is the complete opposite. He could sleep through an explosion. One night around the summertime, we were sleeping, and I was woken up very abruptly by a large banging. Sound like something had fallen downstairs. I didn't get freaked out too much at first. I assumed maybe one of my pets knocked something down. We have a couple of cats and had a dog at the time. But then I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. They didn't sound like paws or anything like. They were like loud boots, stomping on the creaky wood of my stairs. I'm sitting up in bed at this point. I'm trying to wake up Gordon. He's not reacting. And I'm like panicking, because I'm thinking somebody broke into my house. Since we're in an older house, there's about an inch or so of space between the floor and our door, so you can see people's feet and things. I saw a pair of feet boots settle in front of the door, and I am fully panicked at this point. I can't get my husband to wake up. He's snoring, having a great time, and I'm like, I'm about to die. And all of a sudden, as things seem to quiet down, my door starts to aggressively shake and shake, like somebody's trying to get in, but they can't figure out how to turn the knob. And the door is slamming and slamming and slamming. And finally, I'm like, Gordon. He wakes up and it stops. I'm crying at this point. I am in tears, begging him to do something, that someone is in the house. Someone's gonna hurt us, someone's gonna hurt our baby. So he gets up in a stupor, goes and opens the door, and there's nobody there. He goes and checks downstairs. Nothing has fallen. Nothing's out of place. To this day, that still sits with me, because there are still times where I will wake up in the middle of the night and I can hear the door jiggling. Not as violent as that first time, but like somebody's trying to figure out how to get into my room. At first, when some of the footsteps started, I put it in my head that maybe it was my mother, keeping an eye on us. She was always like a huge believer in the paranormal. She always believed that the ghosts, or entity, that we were dealing with. In my childhood, homes were my grandmother. She always kind of put it in my head that the people that we care about most stay with us for a while after they're gone. But the way that it behaved in that moment, it didn't feel like something safe. It didn't feel like something that was there for a good reason. As time went on, it seems that whatever this thing is that we're dealing with has taken a liking to my son. So, Alec, My son turned 1. He was just learning how to talk, and he would just like giggle and kind of like whisper to himself in bed. We didn't think too much of it at first, until one particular night. We have this video baby monitor that when a sound goes off, it'll turn the video on so that you can see into the room. We had it at the time face down right, so that we could see him in his crib. This particular time, the monitor turned on and I just heard like a grumbling. I couldn't figure out what it was at first. I thought maybe it picked up, like the air conditioner or something in his room. But it was kind of like a bra, bra, bra kind of sound. So I went to look at the monitor, and I see my son just sitting up in his crib, talking to the wall. He's giggling and whispering and having a babbly conversation with something in the wall. And at this point, he wasn't old enough to really be talking so I couldn't ask him about it. But this was something that continued to happen for the last 2 years, where the monitor would pop on and he's sitting up, sometimes asleep, sometimes not talking to someone or something. One particular night when he was around 2.5, he was in a twin bed that we have in a frame that's like on the ground, because we didn't want him to fall out of bed. And this night, the same kind of thing happened where the monitor turned on. There was a weird scratchy, grumbly sound, and when I went to check Alec, my son was sitting up in the middle of the bed, just staring straight ahead. And I'm looking at him, and I see the room is dark. And yet there was just in the corner of his room, behind his bed, there's just this giant black figure. And I'm thinking I'm seeing things at this point, and I'm getting ready to go up there. I put one foot on the step, and my son looks up at the camera. He goes, "Mommy, Mommy." In that moment, the darkness disappeared, and he just laid back down and went to sleep. I was just frozen on the stairs, not sure if I actually saw what I saw. It's unsettling, because I don't know if whatever this thing is friendly, if it's got a motive, or why it seems to suddenly be attracted to my son. My son's obsessed with ghosts. I'm not sure where he even got the knowledge of ghosts. He asks my husband to play ghosts with him every night. He wants him to put like a sheet over him and go, "Ooh," and like pretend to be a ghost. No idea where he even learned that word. Just this morning, I went in to get him to go to daycare, and he gets up and he goes, "Mommy." Guess what? My friend did exercises with me after Daddy left. I was like, "Who's your friend?" And he just goes, "I don't know." Part of me wants to think that maybe it is my mom watching over him and coming to see him, but the way that whatever this is treated me and treated my husband, it's hard to be confident in something like that. There was a time recently, Alec was in the living room playing. We were cleaning up the kitchen. I had just let the dogs out the back door. I turned my back to where we have like their water bowl, and when I turned back, there was a dead mouse lying next to the water bowl, and I come up to it, and it's a mouse, and so I'm freaking out. I get my husband to come and look at it, and he's like, "This is stiff. This has been dead for a while. It looked like something had spit it up." But my dogs were outside. The only ones that could have possibly had a mouth big enough to transport this thing were not in the house. I had my husband throw it out. I go to open the back door to let the dogs back in, and there's another one in the exact same position, in the exact same state, right on the back step of my house. We clean that one up. The next day, there's another one in the exact same spot. I can't explain that either. One time, I was trying to get him out the door, and it got to the point where he was getting very, very upset. And I'm like, "Dude, "We've got to go. We've got to go. You have a doctor's appointment. Like, we can't be late." And he got very upset. And he looked at me and he went, "Mommy, no." And as he yelled, "No," my bathroom door slammed shut. I've heard a lot in the past about how, like, ghosts will react to emotions of the people in the space that they are residing in. So I can't help but wonder if that was the ghost, taking his side to try to get me to leave him alone. But a lot of the times, when there are arguments happening in the house, or my son is throwing a fit, that door will slam. I don't know how to explain it. In my previous story, I had talked about the house that I lived in. It's on the same street, and at that time, when my mom and my aunt were fighting, the lights all shut off and things were slamming. And so part of me feels like it could be the same thing, where it seems like whatever it is reacts when there's a lot of negativity going on in the house, or negative emotions. It doesn't feel the same, if that makes sense. This whole street is just weird. There's been a lot of rumor between neighbors about seeing figures just standing across the street, looking into windows. Whatever we're all seeing don't seem to be aggressive or threatening, but they're there, watching. So I don't know if I made a mistake moving back here, moving back into this space, where I had once dealt with this stuff before. But that's a genuine fear of mine, and a genuine fear that I have now accidentally passed. Whatever this is, from me to my son. If you haven't listened to it yet, you can find Sean's story by clicking on the link in the description of this episode, and if there, the story that you want to share with us. Head on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form ad. Free. Listening is also available for our Scary Plus members. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Our Home on Cursed Grounds. The house that we were living in was built in 1946. Strange, weird things were happening, from my grandfather all the way up to me. My grandfather, he was the first one to experience stuff. He was full-blood Cherokee Indian. So he was all about the native, the tales. His first experience, he was in the army. He would go outside, do the perimeter check, and he said one night, when he was close to the alley, he saw this dog that didn't have a head, but you can hear a bark. At the same time, he sees this dog. Something from under the ground wraps around his legs and does not want to let him go. So he started praying in Cherokee. He was a prayer warrior, for sure. It eventually let him go, and he went in the house. That was the very first incident he had. My aunt had a lot going on with her too. She said that she saw him in the yard walking around, and she called out to him. He wouldn't answer. She finally said, "Dad." And when he turned around, he had laser red, glowing eyes that looked at her and then looked away. And she ran in the house, and my grandfather, he was in the house making a sandwich in the kitchen when my aunt was around 12 years old or so. It was about midnight or something like that. So it was dark? It was really late? He said that he saw something carrying my aunt. I don't know if it's a demon or if it was. Whatever it was carrying my aunt. My grandfather, he asked, "Who are you?" He was a medicine man also, so he was never afraid of things like that. He was our ghost buster, if you will. He asked it, "Who are you? What do you want with my daughter?" Whatever it was, that thing got spooked from my grandfather. He said, "You need to leave. You're not going anywhere with my daughter." Whatever it was left did not come back to that house. Anyway, my grandmother, she used to work at a daycare center that was like down the street from the house, and my aunt, she would help her. One night, she had sent my aunt back to the house to go get some extra towels and extra bibs to bring back to the daycare center. My mom was out with friends. My uncle was out with friends. The only person that was in the house was my aunt. When she went there, she went to the room, was getting towels and bibs. When she looked up in the mirror, there was some tall thing standing behind her and put its hand on her shoulder. She said that the hand looked like it had very long, talon-like nails. She couldn't move. She said it was really cold. She looked down and looked back in the mirror, and it was gone. She tried to get out of the room. The door wouldn't open, like it was locked, but from the outside, and there was a lock on the inside, but not on the outside. She heard my uncle come in, and she thought that my uncle was playing tricks on her, because that's what brothers do. He let her out and I just got here. I don't know what, y'all. I just got here. That was it for that night. She went back to the daycare center with my grandmother. I've always been able to see things. Even when I was a little kid, my grandmother had a grandfather clock that had the glass door with pendulum. My cousin, my uncle, my aunt were staying with us for a little while. The adults got the rooms and the kids. Of course, I made a pallet on the floor in the living room. Sometimes I couldn't sleep, actually. That was a lot of the time I couldn't sleep. I would be up and just looking around. And when I was about 4 or 5 is when this happened. And it kept happening like all the time. I would see this lady in the pendulum area of the clock. She was like a Victorian lady, like she had the big poofy bun on top, and she had a Victorian lace dress that would button up all the way up the neck. She would always stare at me and smile. I remember one night, it was always between 2 and 3 in the morning, she actually held her hand out to me. She only did it one time. I don't know what that was about. I don't know if that was an ancestor. I don't know what that was. But I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel. The kids are very susceptible to things like that. I never felt like it was bad. I was dating this person. That apparently was a very evil-spirited. You know, you don't really recognize things. When you first get into a relationship with someone, you're just all lovey-dovey, and nothing can break y'all kind of thing. I didn't realize that. There was something that's always around her. But my mother did not like this woman at all. Didn't know why. She just knows that she did not like her. Every time she was around, something would happen to my mom. One time, she fell out of nowhere. She just fell. And she said there was another time that she fell. It felt like something pushed her. My ex and me were sitting outside at the time. When that happened, things like that would happen with my mom. And nobody else, just my mom. I think one of the most terrifying experiences would be, I want to say it was November 1st of 2013, 2014. This person, she was the kind of person that stalked you. I didn't realize that this was going to be an issue. It apparently was. One night, I was out there with her trying to just keep the peace. On my street, there is no streetlights nearby. There is a streetlight on either end to the street, for the cross street, but there's nothing like in the middle. So where my house was just like pitch black almost, just the glare from the streetlights from afar, we're sitting there, we're talking. I see this dark figure walking towards the car, was dressed in all black. I don't even know if it had a face. It was just all black. It slowly walked past the car. I'm looking by my driveway, 'cause we're parked on the street. My mom's car is parked in the driveway. There was no more room when this guy, or whatever it was, passed my driveway. They disappeared. Right in front of her face is disappeared. That freaked us both out, but it's like, okay, you know what? Things like this happen around my house all the time. Now, mind you, she drove a Nissan Sentra that was a 5-speed. So when you put a manual car in park, you normally put the emergency brake on. That car is not going nowhere. She was parked, had the emergency brake on. We were sitting there and just chilling and talking. All of a sudden, we feel this giant push on this car. The car moved from at least 10 to 15 feet forward. It's in park, and the emergency brake's on. So what do? We get out. We get out of the car. We look on the ground with my phone flashlight, and there is a broken brick on the ground that has an upside-down cross on it. We jetted to the 7th, 11 to get away from there. When we looked to the back of the car on the bumper, like something was underneath the car, pushing the car from the bumper. We drove back to my house, parked in the opposite direction. Now we pulled up. Everything that was on the ground was gone. The brick was gone. Both pieces of the brick was gone. Like somebody swept it up. I don't know who it was 2 a.m, but there was nothing on the ground. If someone was out, we would leave the dining room light on. Where the dining room was, it was catty corner to the front door, so you can see the light shining into the door. My front door was like about a 6.5-foot door, with a half-moon stained glass at the top. Now, mind you, everyone in my house is about 5'3" at the most. There is no way that anyone in my family, in that house, could see out of that stained glass window. We're talking, starting to get into an argument. I looked to my left, which is where my door was, and I saw a dark figure in the stained glass. I blinked a few times to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. It was there. I looked away. I was like, oh my God. She looked over there. She saw it too. Then I look back. It was gone, like nothing was there. I did not go in my house until daylight, 'cause I was not about to go and find out what that was. I've never seen something that scared me like that. There were times when me and my aunt would be sitting on the couch. Now, mind you, this house, like I said, was built in 1946, so it didn't have central heat and air. It had a swamp cooler. It's the big thing that sits outside your house, and you have it connected to a water hose, or you water it every few hours. And it blows air like with a manual fan. It was the winter time when this happened. Me and my aunt were sitting on the couch. While we were watching TV, we heard something walking, crushing leaves by the water cooler. There was this very demonic growl. That happened outside that night. And then we moved to the other couch. There was also demonic growling behind the couch. I had an ex that I was with at the time. I woke up, I want to say it was like 2:30. Something like that, about 2:30. I looked over, her back was facing me. Her room is pitch black, no lights. Not even from the bathroom, nothing was on. I turn over and I look at her. When I tell you, her head, and only her head, turned around to face me. When she faced me, her eyes opened up and they were the same red, glowing eyes in my father had in Dallas. I got up, I went in the living room. It was dark. Her mother is there sitting in the dark and asked me, "What's the matter? You can't sleep." I said, "No, ma'am, I cannot." "What are you doing in the dark?" I turned the light on. She wasn't there. That was. The last time that I spent the weekend over there, I never told her about that, because I was afraid it would happen again. I don't know if that was a warning to save myself from something, or if that was just something just to scare me. I have no clue. At that time, my grandfather, he was still living. I could talk to him about anything. So when something like that would happen, he was able to tell me things. He was telling me that particular incident with the glowing eyes. There's someone trying to keep you away from her. There's something that's not right. I don't know what it was. I don't know if the mom was doing something. I don't know because, like I said, she was there in the living room. But when I turned the light on, she was gone. I was doing DoorDash because I almost died last year. And I came home to like a $500 light bill. Being on a wound vac and trying to work is very bad, but I had to make money for my light bill. So my lights won't get cut off because it was a summertime and in Texas. It's hot as hell here, like it prepares you for hell. I'm doing the DoorDash thing, right? I have my brother with me. My wife was with me, and she was in the front seat. He was in the back seat. I want to say we were in Roanoke, Texas. Because we do DoorDash, it takes you wherever. That's where the money is. That's where I'm gonna go. I had just dropped off at someone's house, and we were leaving to go back to civilization on this pitch black road. There was one street light way down, right before you gone into the highway. I saw this dark figure all in black. I want to say the figure was really tall and slender. It had no face. This one had no face. It was just a black void. If you will, it was just like contorting. Like the head was like the head, but had no face. Was moving around, contorting in the legs. My wife saw it also. We both looked at it. Like you see those horror movies where bones are cracking and stuff. That's what it was doing, standing up. Walking, but contorted at the same time. When I passed it, it disappeared. I said, "Babe, did you see that she started praying her prayers?" I'm just so glad that I didn't have car trouble. I think my grandfather gave me, along with God, of course, the gift of dreams. Because I have dreams about things that are gonna happen. Some of the things that I've dreamt have happened, because it kind of feels like deja vu in a way. If I dream something, it's probably gonna happen, like within the next month or so. I guess the warning dreams, maybe premonition dreams look like that. I've always been very cautious. My grandfather, he always said, if you see something, something follows you. You just walk away. That was always a rule of thumb with us. If we see something, just walk away. Just pretend like it's not there. Pray it'll go away eventually. My grandfather, he raised me from 6 to 18, so I lived in the trailer park with him and my step-grandmother. That night we were having a Halloween party. It was late, we decided to go for a walk on the Trinity River Bridge. Now at that time they had blew up half of the bridge because they were repairing it. So there was like a giant space in between one end to the other. That night we all decided to go out there, chill out for a little bit. It was like midnight. Where the bridge is, it's woods on both sides, like woods and the river. We're there, we hear something. We like, okay, we're leaving, we're going back. We started walking back, and all of a sudden, you hear rustling in the bushes again. Then it moves to the other side, and it goes back to the other side. and goes to the other side. We ran back to where the party was, 'cause, yeah. No, it was Halloween. It was the weekend. We were sitting outside in my friend's house, and all of a sudden one of my other friend, freaked out, he ran like he made a beeline to the bushes. He stayed in there for a little bit. Some other friend went to go get him. And something happened to him in those bushes. Because when my other friend had brought him out, he had to hold him up with his arm around his neck and hold him up and walk him back to the house. He had his head down while he was walking to the house. When he looked up at me, and only I saw it, he had the same red, glowing eyes. Fast forward a few hours later, everything calms down. My friend's window curtains was open. I took a picture of the boys, sitting in front of the window. Now, when I took this picture, it was the 3 boys, and then for whatever reason, my friend had a digital clock that stopped working. Like it started blinking. It was blinking 11:34 upside down. 11:34 upside down spells hell. Okay, I take the picture. Everything's good. A few days later, I get to develop the pictures. That picture that I took of the 3 of them had the clock in the picture that said hill, and there was somebody's face in his window. The guy had been about 6'2". Ademuna. I don't know if it was somebody just being a peep, and Tom or what, but I know that when I looked in the lens. Taking the picture, there was nobody there but the 3 boys. A couple died in our house. It was an older couple. Now, I don't know if they are the ones that are haunting it. I'm pretty sure it's gotta be something more demonic. Because demonic growling. Seeing that big old shadow person in the door, that doesn't seem like peaceful to me. That's why it freaks me out. When there's an open door or an open window, and it's dark outside, like a closet, and all closets have to be closed, I will not sleep with a door open. It has to be closed, a window, especially at nighttime, needs to be closed. The curtains need to be drawn. I don't want to see outside, and I don't want nothing to see me inside. To share your own story with us, head on over to TrueScaryStory.com and fill out the form. And if you know of someone who might like this too, make sure you send it to them. To support our show and listen without ads, try out Scary Plus. It's free for 2 weeks and then $4.99 a month, and you can cancel whenever you want. It's over on scaryplus.com. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Witch Book. A family moves into a beautiful home in San Antonio, but what they thought was a fresh start quickly turned into a nightmare. Don't listen alone. My name is Edwin, and here is Veronica's true scary story. This dates back to August of 2018. My parents had decided to move from Round Rock, which is north of Austin. This happened to be a perfect timing for my younger sister and I, because I was transferring out of community college to a university in San Antonio while she was graduating high school and gonna go to a college in San Antonio as well. It was a beautiful house. It was a 2-story house, all brick in a gated community, which was like super fancy to us. About 6 months into living there, things really started to pick up. Instantly when you walk in, it had like an eerie feeling to it. The first instance is I was in my restroom. You can see the hallway, and it was a pretty long hallway connecting all 3 rooms. I saw my sister walk out, and I said something along the lines like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Earlier, My parents said they're gonna go grocery shopping, and I thought she was going with them. But she didn't reply back to me. I started saying like, "What are you doing?" But I couldn't see her. So then I started looking all around the house, and when I went outside to go check if the car was gone, and I saw I was home alone, which just really freaked me out. So I kind of brushed off a little bit, thinking, okay, maybe I'm just seeing things tricking my mind. A few months passed by again. So now, March of 2019. It just became super bad, actually. My mom got really sick, which prevented her from working. So she had to stay home full time. My room happened to be right above my parents' room. And so my mom was in her room a lot. And she would tell me sometimes or text me at least and be like, "Hey, are you home?" I'd be like, "No, I'm in class or doing something." She would tell me she would hear footsteps in my room. Sound like someone was walking around. And she didn't think too much about it. She just thought, maybe, yeah, I'm just so bored I'm starting to hear things. And because of that, my dad got my mom a small puppy. He was a month old at that age. He was already starting to bark. At the bottom of the stairs, he was terrified to go up the stairs, actually. He will only go upstairs if one of us were with him. Already that was giving me a sign is something really here in this house? The attic was right above our room. Oddly enough, it was in this hallway. There was an entrance to the attic, and shortly after that, my sister starts to smell something super bad. My dad goes, checks it out. He comes back down, and it's a dead rat. But also, he finds this box. And in that box was a weird book of some sort, which had carvings into it. You could tell there were blood marks on it. You could tell there were. Maybe a piece of bone in there. As well, my mom's kind of superstitious and shows. She was already do not open that. Do not touch it, just go ahead and burn it. But my dad doesn't believe in any of this. So he said, "No, I'm gonna open it." He opens the book. And everything was in Latin, writing, and images and just stuff you see kind of in a witch book. And so it freaked me out. And my sister and my dad was okay, Mom is right, let's burn it. So we go in the backyard, and my dad just starts a fire and throws that whole box in there. It almost looked like the flames were starting to turn blue, like it wasn't from this world almost. After he did that, it kind of made the spirits mad a bit. More time passes. One night I was in my room, and I could hear what I thought was my sister calling my name. And I said, "Hey, what's up?" And she didn't say anything back. I go downstairs because I was okay. I heard her literally say my name. And not just my name, I have a family nickname. And it's only she calls me that. And so I go downstairs, I'm probably getting a snack. And she comes to the front door, and I say, "Hey, Warrant, didn't you just call my name?" She goes, "No, I was outside the whole time." And that just freaked me out even more. That's when I really told her what was going on. Because not only did I hear my name, but I saw her months before. So I tell her what was happening. And she just kind of looks at me blankly. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm really going crazy. Well, my parents overhear us in the kitchen, talking about this, and that's when my dad says, "Oh, we've been hearing things too." They start to tell me that downstairs. When they go to bed, they always close the door. But they kind of stay up a little bit and watch TV. Say they've been hearing footsteps in the kitchen, and they assumed it was us. Well, one night, they got scared because that door closed and they hear big footsteps, outside their door, and it's a small, mini hall that you kind of have to turn into. To get to their room, they thought it was one of us, and so they start calling out our names. We didn't say anything back, but they could hear it breathing. Well, he got up, opened the door, nothing. And they scared both my mom and my dad while all this was going on. We were all just kind of keeping this inside with each other, because I think none of us wanted to believe something was going on. So to hear that my mom and my dad and my sister, that we all have been hearing or seeing something, it was just spooky. My parents ended up reaching out to the previous owners of the house, because technically, my parents were renting out the house, and the owners, for whatever reason, didn't want to live there anymore. Well, my parents just reached down. They're like, hey, like this stuff has been going on. Has stuff like this been happening to you all? When y'all lived here, and they said, oh no, nothing like that happened. But I think you should know this. The man had his mother living with them, and she happened to die in that house, in the room that I was sleeping in. When I find out this information, I think I turned cold. It just confirmed all the things that were happening around in that house to me, especially more towards me, because I feel like I was hearing the most and seeing the most things compared to my family. They also admitted that it was just her upstairs most of the time, so they didn't know what she was up to. But they were here late at night, walking around, talking, and they assumed that she was on the phone. One night, my sister said she was in her room, and she heard what sounded like me going through my stuff in my, like I said, we shared a wall together for our rooms. So if I was going through my drawers, or even turn on the TV, she could hear it. And she kind of just says like, hey, starts talking to me, but I never say anything back. Maybe 5 minutes pass, and she hears more noise coming from my room again. So she really gets up and sees that my door is closed, and was like, hey, like, I'm coming in to check on you. When she opens the door, she sees one of my drawers pull open. Right when she opens the door, but when she sees the drawer pull open, she realizes no one's in my room. There is only one instance where we all saw. So, something at the same time. October of 2019. Kid you not, it was Halloween night. We just got done trick-or-treating, and the front door actually was this glass-type front door where you could kind of see through it. So we had the front porch light on because we had just got done trick-or-treating. My mom's in the living room. My dad was actually out that night, so he wasn't home. But my sister and I were in the dining table, and if you lean backwards from your chair, in the dining table, you can see towards the front door. We hear the doorbell go off. And of course, in a 2-story house, that doorbell ring echoes everywhere. I lean back towards my chair from the dining table. When I see this tall figure, it's Halloween night, so of course costumes. And I was thinking to myself, maybe some teenagers are at the door or a teenager, because I could tell it was one person. So I grabbed the candy bowl. They ring the doorbell again. At this point, my mom and my sister behind me, kind of telling me to be careful, because it was late, but also like, yes, just get the candy out. As soon as I open the door, nothing. The shadow's gone, no one's at the front door. That freaked my mom out the most, because she's always just heard footsteps and heard things, but she never actually saw anything. So when she saw that no one showed up at the door, after we saw a shadow, we could tell someone was at the front door. That just freaked her out even more. I'm in my room one night. I go to bed like normal. But except this time, my mom's dog, he decides to sleep with me. And he never sleeps with me, but he decided to. We go to bed, and I always sleep with my door open. But in the hallway, since it was such a long hallway, we had a nightlight, so it lit up the whole hallway. I could see, like, if someone was walking in the hallway due to, like, the shadows and the passing of the nightlight. We're in bed, I'm dead asleep, and all of a sudden I hear our dog start to growl. I've never heard him growl before, but he starts to growl. It wakes me up, and I look over at him like, what is he growling at? And I see that his head is towards my door. So I look to my right, and I see in the corner of my eye, there are these long fingers with like razor-sharp nails. I can see it through the shadow. And as it moves its fingers, it starts to crackle. Like it just starts to make like bones popping noise. I realized his fingers and his whole hand is starting to cover the light switch, which is the only light switch. I have to put the light on. I didn't have a lamp in that room. I just freaked out. I didn't know what to do. Like instantly, I'm just thinking to myself, whatever. This is this demon, this monster. Like it literally wants me in the dark. It's covering the light switch. I just got up and I decided I'm gonna touch it. Like I'm gonna touch it. 'Cause I need to turn this light switch on, and I did. And when I touched it, it felt scaly and very hard, and it kind of scratched me a bit. Light switch goes on. I'm hysterical. My mom's dog runs out of my room barking. Going down the stairs, I'm screaming towards my sister, and I'm waking her up. Like, please. Like, wake up, you need to hear what I'm about to say next. Because I'm not lying. She's listening to me. She's telling me to calm down, like everything's okay. You're okay. I could tell she didn't believe me fully. But when I showed her the cut on my finger, I think that's when she kind of realized, okay, yeah, you're probably right. My parents come upstairs, they're like, what's going on? I tell them the same story. And I think they really believed me because I was just so hysterical that I was not gonna sleep in that room for the rest of the night. When I finally slept in that room, if anything, it just made it worse for me because I was having constant nightmares and terrors. Every night I will wake up screaming of like doing evil things to my family, which I've never had experienced that before. To this day, that really still shakes me to my core, truly. Because I have had previous experiences in the past. I am the most sensitive in my family to hear, feel things, but I've never actually had anything touch me, or me touch it that was like the pushing factor for me to get out of the house. I had a feeling this entity was just going to continue to talk to me and play with me because it knew I was the one that could sense, see, and hear them the most out of the rest of my family. So I moved out after that. My parents and my sister both say like they haven't heard much or seen anything after that. I was so scared that this entity followed me really because I touched it. So I didn't know what was going to happen. Thankfully, I have not seen or heard anything since. But I definitely do get nightmares about it still. Me back in that room. Me just being so still, shaking to my core, feeling I can't move. January 2020. My family decides to move out. And on the last day, my mom, she usually likes to take video recordings of the house, empty just like for her records and just to be like, Oh, this was a fun memory. So my dad takes the video instead. He's taking the video around the house. He's going upstairs and he hits my room and he says, as soon as he hits my room, the phone goes dead. It was fully charged. It was working properly. And it just died all of a sudden. And when it died at the same time, he heard my mom call his name. He goes out, goes downstairs, doesn't see her, doesn't even see my sister. So he calls them. And he realizes he's home alone as well. Because they're gone. He gathered whatever he had left and took out of the house. He waited outside. He did not want to wait inside the house anymore, because that just freaked him out more. That was the last of it. We don't know what happened, who moved in after us. We told the couple that whoever they rent the house to, next to please advise, someone did pass away because things did happen. That was a spooky house I've ever lived in. And I'll definitely remember it. I definitely do sleep with the nightlights on. I do believe now that I am a stronger spiritual person. I do pray more. I got more into church after that, which helps me in my belief system. But I definitely get more hesitant when I do sense something, because I don't know if it's that same thing that's following me, or if it's something new completely. And I hope that I never experience anything like that. Again, you can get these stories without ads by trying out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com and support our small team behind the scenes. At the same time, and also, please drop 5 stars for us in the reviews for the show, and we'll keep the stories going. If you have a story you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story. The man in the top hat. Growing up in a haunted house is one thing, but what if the spirits follow you wherever you go? This is a chilling account of a family tormented by ghosts, demons, and dark entities. My name is Edwin, and here is Chris's true scary story. The earliest memory of anything happening that I can remember is, I was probably around 6 years old. We had this house, my grandparents lived there. It was in Virginia, so it was a very, very old house. There was a lot of us. So there was my mom, my dad, myself, my 2 younger siblings, and my youngest brother. Generally, when there is a lot of people in one home, things become very active. You feel things, you sense things, you pick up on things. When we moved in, my grandmother told us that there is a spirit in the house. And my grandmother was involved in a lot of different things like tarot cards and doing readings and things like that. So she was already very sensitive. She would tell us, hey, there is a spirit in this house. We call him Angel, and she just wanted to let us know, in case we saw anything or felt anything. I remember never feeling comfortable in that house. I always felt like somebody was watching me. I never physically saw anything, but it was just creepy. I just did not want to be in that house. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. There was this one time that me and my sisters were playing, and we were playing very, very loudly. My grandma, she's in the kitchen. She comes running out of the kitchen, telling us that we need to be quiet because she saw the spirit. She saw Angel. There was a door in the kitchen that led to the garage, and she said that she saw a white mist coming from the bottom of the door into the kitchen. She started screaming like we heard her scream. So she runs into the living room yelling at us. Mind you, My grandmother never yelled at us when we were kids. We would write on her white couch with markers. And she never yelled so. For her to come into the living room, screaming and yelling at us, I knew something bad had happened. So me being my 6-year-old self, I yelled, "I hate Angel. I don't care what Angel says." And then the very next day, I come down with this strange virus. We didn't even know what it was, but I remember being insanely sick, to the point where I was actually admitted into the hospital, and I was in the hospital for 3 days. No doctors, nobody can find anything wrong with me. And I remember my parents talking to my grandmother, and they said, yeah, it was Angel. It was the spirit that had attacked me physically that was causing me to become so ill. My grandma actually told us that the owner of the house had shot himself in the head in the attic. You can only access the attic through the garage. So it made sense when my grandma was saying that. She saw that mist coming from the door because it LED'd to the attic. The next time we experienced something, it happened in this house. It was in Little Washington, North Carolina. Another really large, old, creepy house all on the East Coast. I was probably around 8 or 9 when this happened. We didn't really feel things, like we would see things, but we didn't really feel anything. Except for my one sister. She was probably around 7, and she would talk about the dark man. She would tell us that he would follow her. He would watch her, and he was this tall, slim, dark figure, and he had a top hat. And I asked her, well, how long has the dark man been following you? And she said, all my life. There was this one instance where it was really late at night. My father was watching TV in the living room. My mom was asleep. Me and my younger sister, we had woken up in the middle of the night, and we realized, hey, Jen's not here. She's not in bed. Where is she? So we go downstairs, and the way that the house was set up is there's a huge living room with the TV. There's a couch in the middle, and then there's stairs that lead up to our bedrooms, because we were sleeping upstairs at the time. So when you come down the stairs, you can see the TV, and there's this tiny little hallway to the side that's kind of casted and, in the moonlight, in the dark, so to speak, because it was really, really dark, even with the TV on, because of how large the living room was. So me and my younger sister, we come downstairs and we see her in this dark corner, bathed a little by moonlight, and we can make out that she is standing in that corner, holding a steak knife. All she's saying to herself is she's saying, "Kill John, kill John, kill John, kill John, kill John, kill John." That's my dad's name. So we go to her, and I'm shaking her, and I'm like, Jen, what's going on? What's going on? And she's just saying over and over, "Kill John, kill John, kill John." Me and my younger sister are just looking at her, and she's like in a trance, and she's just saying this over and over again, to the point where I'm like violently shaking her, and she finally snaps out of it up. She's like, "Oh, my gosh, it told me to kill our father." She gets her finger and she points into the dining room. No light whatsoever, and she said that over there. She described it as a black figure with super red, glowing eyes. I today believe that that was a demon. There's no other thing for it. And I was like, Jen, let's put the knife away and let's go upstairs. And let's go in bed. And she was really weak, just kind of like swaying a little bit. So we took her back upstairs later in bed. And me and my younger sister at the time, we did not want to go to sleep because we did not know what was going to happen. Was she going to wake up in the middle of the night and do it all over again. After that, we just started praying and we're like, please God, don't let this happen again. Please God, shed your blood of protection upon us. Because my family is very, very religious. And the very next day we were like, hey, do you remember doing this? She had no recollection whatsoever of that happening. We're all in our late 30s now. And she's like, no, that never happened. I wasn't sleepwalking. I wasn't dreaming. Me and my little sister both have this memory of her doing this. We know that it happened, even though she doesn't believe us. We never actually told anyone. This is the first time that I am talking about this since we were little kids. Another situation that we had. This was a house that we had. Again, lived in with my grandparents and my aunt and her son. So there's 9 people living in a 3-bedroom house. Super, super tiny house with just a lot of people. Everyone had an experience in this house. I was around maybe 9. This is when I actually saw the dark man that my sister had talked about. I remember that it was really late at night. My grandma was asleep on the bed that I was on. In my sister's cause, she would always sleep with us. And I remember I was watching TV. It was super late at night. And then I just felt this strange feeling come over me, that somebody was watching me. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I had chills. It got very, very cold. I'm facing the television. Right next to the TV is the door that leads into the hallway. I turn my head. I cannot move. I cannot speak. I remember my eyes popping out of my head because I see exactly what my sister had described. A tall, slim figure with a top hat. No face, no eyes. It's just this dark thing staring at me. I could not move. I could not speak. I wanted to scream. I'm just looking at it, and it's looking at me. And then I remember just closing my eyes and being like, please God, don't let anything bad happen. Please God, let me wake up from this, whatever is happening. Let me wake up from this. I don't want to be hurt. I was scared, terrified. And then I open my eyes, and it's gone. The feeling is gone. Everything is gone. I didn't wake up my grandma. I didn't wake up my sisters. But the next day, I told them what had happened. So while we're all talking about this, they're like sharing their experiences now. Because we had lived in the house for, I would say probably maybe 3 to 6 months. My sister saw this little girl. So she was in the bathroom, and she was just kind of playing around in the bathroom. There's a big mirror, and she was looking in the mirror and just kind of doing like funny faces and stuff. She said that she heard something in the bathroom. Nobody is in there with her. It's just her. This was the same sister that we believe had been possessed. She was looking in the mirror. And then she looks to the side, and she said that she sees this little girl with these curls dressed in early 1900s clothing. It was like a pink dress, and she had these ribbons and tights and these pink shoes, and the little girl was just staring at her. It approached her a little bit, and then she looks back in the mirror at herself, and it's gone. She bolts it. She runs out of the bathroom. We were in the bathroom again, and we were like putting on makeup and whatnot. And my sister was with me at the time. We're looking in the mirror, and we're just kind of playing around. We're like, 9 or 10, and then I see this man, and his face is dirty, and he's got like all these cuts and bruises. and he's wearing a black and white striped gel outfit that you would see, like from the 1900s. He's got this hideous smile, and he's just smiling at me. I would say. I probably stared at him for about 10 seconds. And then it got really cold. And me and my sister looked at each other, and she was like, "You saw something, didn't you?" My younger sister and my younger cousin, who also lived in this house, talked about how they would see this clown. And this clown was again early 1900s with the face paint and the hat and a dirty clown outfit, and he would just watch them. Now, me and my other sister never experienced. We never saw the clown, but my younger sister and my cousin saw it, and neither of them knew what each other was seeing. We didn't talk about this again until we got older. Later, after we moved out of this house, we found out that there was multiple murders. Around the area, we lived next door to a chiropractor. It became a chiropractor, but it was a very old house that they had knocked down, and 2 people were murdered in that house. We also found out, because we lived on a main road, that there was a bunch of accidents and people jaywalking that would be hit by vehicles and that were killed. We don't know what century it took place in. We don't know if it was the 1900s, but we found out that there was murders next door. There's another house that we lived in, and this is up in Michigan. It was a 2-story upstairs, downstairs 3 bedrooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms downstairs. Very large kitchen is very large house. My grandparents lived there on my mom's side. My cousins lived there. We lived there. There had to be at least 13 people living in this house at one time. We called it the Amityville house because everyone saw something. Every person that lived in that house experienced something. It would get worse. When we had like a Christmas party there, and we had 30-some people in the house, that's when I got really strange. I always felt uncomfortable in this bathroom. It was my uncle's bathroom, and he had painted it all red. We used to call it, the Bloody Mary bathroom. Red carpet, red tile, a black sink, a black toilet, a red shower. Like everything was black and red. It was crazy. My younger sister, her and my cousin were just kind of like in one of the bedrooms with the red bathroom, because it was connected to it. They were just laying on the bed, and they were watching TV, not really doing anything. My sister saw a pen fly across the bedroom, hit the wall, and they're both like, "Did you see that?" It had kind of become normal for us to see these things in this house. So we didn't really make a big stink about it. Like, we're like, okay, that happened. My cousin, he fell asleep downstairs on the couch. I was upstairs with my sisters. We were all asleep. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. We're all asleep. My cousin comes running upstairs screaming at me. "Why did you pull my hair? Why are you hitting me? What are you doing?" And we all wake up because he's screaming, and I'm like, "Dude, I was never downstairs. I've been up here the whole time sleeping." And he's like, No. You slapped me in the face and you pulled my hair, and I saw you run upstairs." To this day, he fully believes with his whole entire being that I was the one that did that. Another thing that happened with my grandfather is he was also asleep on the couch. He said he saw these 2 little girls by the living room door, just jumping around, making noise and playing. It's the middle of the night. We're not going to be downstairs bothering my grandfather. We were upstairs asleep. So we hear him yelling, "Stop making noise. Stop playing, go to bed." And we're like, we're upstairs sleeping. but you can hear him yell because there was no door that separated the stairs from the downstairs to the upstairs. And then the next morning he's like, "Why were you guys playing downstairs in the middle of the night?" I was trying to sleep. We were like, "Grandpa, we weren't downstairs. We were asleep. We heard something. We didn't know if that was you yelling at us or not, but we weren't downstairs." And again, this is another one of those things that happened in this house where we were just like, okay, it's the spirits. It's whatever it is that's here is doing that. I was again 16th, 17, and it was cool to smoke cigarettes back then. So I had stolen a cigarette, stole the lighter, and I had nowhere to go but outside. I went through the kitchen to the back doors again. This is about 2 a.m. I was talking to my cousin on the phone late. You know we were joking around. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go have a cigarette." I make sure that the door that separates me from the downstairs door is open. Because you close that door, it locks. You cannot open that door from the outside. You have to be inside to open the door, so I'm outside. You know, on the cell phone with my cousin. Cell phone. I'm smoking and everything. And it's late at night and we're in a field. And I'm looking around and I'm like, why did I think that this was a good idea? It is really, really creepy out here. I'm like, I need to get back inside. So, the door that I had left open was still slightly open. But to my horror, the door that connects to the kitchen to get in is closed shut. So I am jiggling the handle of this door, and I cannot get in. There was no wind. It was a summer night. There was no storm. No wind that could have shut that door from the inside. Nothing. It had to have been something that was on the inside of the house that did this. So I'm jiggling the handle, and I'm crying now because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't get in the house, I can't get in. Nobody's gonna find me until they start to wake up. So I was out there crying on the phone with my cousin. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't get back in the house. What am I gonna do for at least 15 minutes? And then I see the light turn on. My grandma is in the kitchen to get water. And I'm like, Grandma, could you please let me in? And she opens the door and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, Grandma, did you close the door? And she's like, no. I literally just came in here to get some water. What are you talking about? There was no one in here, all the lights were out. I just came to get some water. And then we both looked at each other and we were like, It was just another experience. Just something strange that happened. It was just one of those things. There is so much that happened in this house that everybody experienced. And I honestly can't even keep track of everything that happened. I saw an ant through a window that had passed away. Whatever this energy was, whatever this spirit was, it liked to take the form of people. Because we always thought that it was each other. Like my grandpa saw us kids downstairs. My cousin saw me pull his hair. It always took the shape. This was a very common thing. We knew my aunt had told me multiple times, like when they were over for Christmas, that she would see me go into the bathroom and then leave the bathroom. And this is the red bathroom. Go into the bathroom, leave the bathroom. Well, I'm not even there. I'm downstairs. So when I went upstairs, she was like, weren't you just up here? Didn't you go into the bathroom? That wasn't me. I wasn't up here. I was downstairs. The house wasn't uncomfortable. We didn't feel uncomfortable in the house because there was so many of us. And we kind of just knew, you know this thing. It likes to take shape of us, whatever it is. We never did any sort of research on the house, but we had left, and then a few years later, my grandparents had sold it. And whoever they sold the house to, they demolished it. The only thing we know is literally everybody in that house saw something, from the oldest to the youngest. My cousin, who was way old at the time, she was in her third. I have a lot of family. She made something called an angel board. She had this square cardboard cutout, and she wrote all the letters of the alphabet. It was a handmade Ouija board, but she never called it that. She called it the angel board. She didn't want to scare us, so she brought this board into the Amityville house. We're already experiencing things. So we're like, you know what? Let's play with it. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can find out who the spirit is. We would do like this prayer before we would start. And it goes like, we call upon our guardian angels to protect us, and to watch over us, and to guide us. We would use this little shot glass, where we would all put our fingers on, and we would wait, until something happened. There was this one spirit that would come through. When he was a boy, he was about 15 or 16. He had told us that he died in a car accident. We would ask it, like, where are you? Are you in heaven, Where are you contacting us from? It would always just, say the dark place. The dark place. We didn't know what that meant. We knew he was in a car accident. He gave us a description of himself. Brown hair, brown eyes, all of this fun stuff. And then we wanted to see if it knew anything about us. So we would ask, tell me what color shirt I'm wearing right now. And we would all just kind of, look at each other and see if it would move. It would go to pink blue. It would name the colors that we were wearing. And we were all like, did you do that? Did you move it? Did you move it? Everybody was like, no, I did not move that thing. Then we started to ask questions about our future. Are we going to get married? Are we going to have kids? And it told me that my grandfather would die very soon. And it just said, blood disease, blood disease, blood disease. A few years later, my grandfather had diabetes, and he had an infection in his foot that went into his bloodstream, and he unfortunately passed away. That little boy that told us these things followed us every time we would play with the board. Again, it was another house. This is my aunt and uncle's house. It was a huge house, and this was somewhere in Indiana. We were, 16, 17. We're all over here at my aunt's for Easter. Let's play with the board. Let's see what it does. We brought out the board and we played with it. And of course, that same boy came through. And we were just talking to him. And then once we were done, we're like, okay, let's put the board away. We're all sleeping in this one bedroom. We're sleeping on the floor. It's a bunch of people, all the beds are taken. So we're just sleeping on the floor. So I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, okay, I gotta go to the bathroom. The light is off. I walk into the bathroom. It's a tiny bathroom. It's super dark. I open up the door. The mirror is right in front of the door. I'm looking through the mirror and I see this boy. Brown hair, brown eyes. Scratches blood on his face. And I see him, and he's staring back at me. I was scared because it felt like all of the light from the room, if there was any light that came, was gone, and I can make out his face The description that he gave us in the board was accurate. It looks just like the kid that we were talking to. He's got this weird smile on his face. I closed the door and I started praying, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. Please, Jesus, I'm never gonna play with that board again. I'm never gonna do it again. I don't want to see these things. Like, I'm scarred at this point from everything that we've seen. I don't want to see these things. I don't want to feel these things. And I opened my eyes and I opened the door. And I hurry up and turn the light on. And he's gone. Little do I know my cousin, who's sleeping in the next room, is experiencing something with the little boy. She tells us the next morning that she was asleep. She remembers feeling really, really cold, and because she was so cold, it woke her up, and all she said is, she opens her eyes. She's stiff, she can't move. It's like she's frozen. She sees the little boy that we were talking to. On the board, same little boy that I saw. She sees the little boy, and she's staring at him. And he's staring at her. She can't scream. She can't open her mouth. The only thing she has control of is her eyes. So she stares at him, and he's like hovering above her. And they're eye to eye, she said. Started praying. Opens them. He's gone. We talked about this the next day. And she's like, hey, I don't think we should play with that board anymore. And I'm like, really? I don't want to play with it either. I have to tell you what happened. To me? And she's like, wait. What happened to you, so we share each other's stories? The description matches perfectly of that little boy that we were talking to. He followed us to 3 different houses from that board, and we all swore to God that none of us did this. None of us touched it. We didn't move it. We didn't make it. Say the same thing over and over again. And when we swear to God, I know it's true. 'Cause again, very religious family. I know none of us did that. There would always be the cold, and then the prickly. And then we would experience something. So me and my one cousin, we would say it's sleep paralysis, because we opened up our eyes and we were frozen. And we couldn't move. It was really, really, really scary. And we talk about it to this day. We agree, you know. It was a demon that possessed my sister. This dark man followed us from house to house. My sister said that he followed her up until her 20s, and she hasn't seen him anymore. We talked about this clown with my 2 cousins. We never spoke to each other about it. Not until we were much older. This thing was always there watching them. One of the most scariest things that happened to me was that situation with my sister, that she saw this black figure with these red eyes telling her to kill my father. Now, my father was very abusive, emotionally, mentally, physically, and we all talked about, you know how much we didn't like Kim, and you know how. Why did Mom end up with him? You know, like we were never close to my father. We were super close to my mom. And then for that spirit, that demon coming to her and telling her to do that, it was scary. It still today scares the crap out of me. I don't like talking about it. I don't like thinking about it. Because that's not normal. That's not normal for a 7-year-old to have a knife and want to kill your father. I've realized, actually, me talking to my sister, you know, getting her story about the clown. We've started to feel really strange things lately. Just talking about our stories. Like the house that I live in right now with my fiance and my stepkids. It's not a scary house, but my daughter has told me that she's seen some strange things lately. And I've seen this dark figure. I don't know who caused we had a name for him. Dark man, you know. I don't know if it's the dark man or not. But something happened the other night ago. That reminded me of being in that house, with my grandma on the bed, seeing that figure and being terrified. And that happened a few nights ago. The TV was on my bedroom. Door was slightly ajar and it's dark. There's no light and I'm just, laying in bed and I'm trying to fall asleep. And then my eyes go to the crack in the door. And it's probably about 8 to 10 inches open. And I see him, and I haven't seen him in a very, very long, I'm getting emotional talking about it, 'cause I haven't seen it so long. And there he was, staring at me with the top hat. Slim, dark figure. Same thing that's haunted us since we were kids. And I saw it, and I got really cold. And I was just like, oh, my God, it followed me here. It followed me here. I close my eyes. I start praying again. I'm like, Jesus, I rebuke it in your holy, precious name. Please, God, I don't want to go through this. I don't want to experience this. And I open my eyes, and it's gone. It's the same thing that I saw. I know what it is, because it attached itself to my family. Whatever it is, and the only thing that I can do now is just pray about it and just rebuke it in Jesus' name and wish that I never see that again. I don't want it to hurt me, and I don't want it to hurt my kids, and I know that it's not a nice spirit. It's not something that's watching over me or protecting me. It wants to hurt us. Do you have a true scary story to share with us? Click on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form. To get these episodes at free and support the show, check out Scary Plus over on Scary Plus. It's free for 14 days and $4.99 a month after that. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Unwelcome Visitor. Don't listen to this one alone. What she thought was her uncle's spirit returning turned into a terrifying encounter that she will never forget. My name is Edwin, and here is Angie's true scary story. My name is Angelica. I live in Murrieta, California. This happened in Temecula, California. More Winchester. Past Lake Skinner, its very secluded area hills, cows, fences, and your closest neighbor is about a mile away. At night, it was pretty scary. The only lights you can see were the houses that you can see through the hills. Around this time, my parents had divorced, and we lived in a home in Monrovia Valley. In that home, I experienced a lot of dark energy. During their divorce, it was very ugly. I have to say it was like a spiritual battle going on. We ended up moving to my aunt and uncle's home. In Winchester, they graciously opened up their home to us because my mother had nowhere to go at this time. My uncle and my aunt, they were working and they had their own business. They were pretty well off. They had a beautiful property. It was a ranch, we call it El Rancho. It was a one-story flat, and with 3 houses in the back. The only people who would come were those who lived there. Around 1995, I was 13 or 14 years old. My uncle passed away. It was very unexpected. He had gotten into a car accident. It was pretty tragic. He actually ended up on the news. We didn't know what to make of this, or how to move past this. He was a pretty big part of our family. He had such a huge personality. He was a father figure to a lot of people. Especially me during that time, it was very hard. 2 months later, or still getting over his passing. This happened early in the morning. I was sleeping. I heard 3 knocks. It was like somebody knocking on the door. It wasn't fast, it was like a normal knock. The first one was like knock. The second round got a little bit louder. Third round got a little bit louder. I was awoken up by the second 3 knocks. I was just laying in bed. I was looking around. I knew that it was very early. I didn't hear birds chirping. I didn't hear the dogs barking. Again, I hear 3 loud knocks. I'm looking around and I'm scared. I'm just thinking to myself, am I the only one who's awake? Am I the only one who's hearing this? I turn to my cousin who's laying next to me. We shared a room. I go to wake up my cousin. I push her. She does not wake up. I hear 3 loud bangs again. The door that these bangs are happening on. They're on a security gate. This door is really sensitive. You can hear a tap, or if you close it, it vibrates throughout the whole house. My cousin is not waking up. I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on this early in the morning? It's a house full of people. I slowly walk out. I peek my head out into the hallway, and I look. I'm quiet. I didn't say anything. I'm just looking to see if anybody else is hearing it. In this property, when you walk out into the hallway, I have turned left. You immediately come to the kitchen on your left, and then to the right is the door. In the kitchen, there is a bar countertop with 3 bar stools, and the very first one, and the end was my uncle's favorite chair. I'm walking slowly throughout the house. I walk over to his favorite chair, and I sit there. During this time while I was walking, I didn't hear any more banging or knocking. I was like, okay, I'll just sit here and wait. I don't know what that was about, but I'm the only one awake so far. I sit down and I look around, confused, but also waiting for something. Then again, I heard 3 loud bangs, and this time they were so loud it was like gunshots. I jumped out of the chair. I was terrified. I ran over to the door. I opened it, and I opened the security gate. There was nobody there. My uncle's favorite dog was outside. He was just walking towards me. And then he turned his head. He must have seen something. I'm guessing it was my uncle. He jumped up and he was extremely happy to see somebody. That wasn't there. I had no idea. Nobody that I can see was there. He was jumping up and down, wagging his tail. And this is a very lazy dog, he does. Doesn't really give attention. Unless it's somebody very specific. I was just very focused on that. It was hard for me to process everything that was going on. My uncle, who was staying with us, ended up opening the window after this had transpired. And he goes, "Do you see that?" I go, "Yeah, I see that." He's just dumbfounded. He's just looking at me with his mouth open. I just stand there finally. Everyone slowly starts to wake up. My aunt comes out. What was that? Or what's going on, my cousin, who previously I tried shaking awake. She comes over to the kitchen. Everyone has this like, what's going on? Look on their face. They're asking questions, and I said, "You guys didn't hear those 3 loud knocks." My tia, who knows far more about spirituality and what certain things mean than I do. She says, "Wait, how many knocks?" I said, 3 knocks. She just stood there and she goes, "Why did you open the door? Why didn't you come and ask me?" And I was just, I don't know. I was so confused, and I was like, did I do something bad? My tia, she just stayed quiet. She wasn't mad at me. She was mad at what was going on. She stood quiet. My cousins looked at me and they're like, "You don't know what that means?" And I go, "No, I don't. I personally think that I was targeted. Everyone else was put to sleep." She had a maid who's still alive, by the way, who practices Santeria. She would do these little rituals. I was there to witness them, to see them. So after this event transpired that night, she was called by my aunt to come back because she was visiting family, either in Mexico or in Los Angeles. She explained to her what happened and what's going on. "You need to come. You need to cleanse the home. You need to do something because I know something's off." My aunt was like, I knew something was going to happen because she was gone. I don't know the background and what was going on, but I knew that they would do veneration spells or ask Mythia's maid to conjure in spirits or get consultations through people that they trusted in the spirit world. Now I know some people, or those that are listening, may feel like that's not possible, but it truly is. There are people out there who can invite spirits into them. She was that person. She was the one that was cleaning, and she was organizing. And then all of a sudden, she would faint. And then it would be somebody completely different. She was just only Spanish speaking, and she would start talking perfect English, like in a deep voice, like a man's voice. I would just yell, "Tia Blanquita fainted again." She knew exactly what that meant, though I was a little scared of her. My aunt and uncle spoke to her in Spanish. Whenever she would say something, my cousins would have to translate. It was in perfect English. That really threw me off. I was scared. That was the very first time I had ever seen anything like that. I had never experienced seeing any sort of ability to that degree before. Like I've heard of maybe a witch or something and stuff like that for Halloween. But I just never understood the gravity or the level of abilities that some people may have. I'm here at the house and I'm scared because I have no idea what's going to happen. All I know is that I would hear cabinets open and close. My cousins were afraid to go, use the restroom by themselves. The tension in the air and what everyone was feeling was just scared. My aunt was upset, but she told me, "You might have let in a demon." She goes, "You've never heard about not opening doors, especially when doors are being knocked. And there's nobody there, somebody's knocking. And of course, we're in the middle of nowhere." I thought it was maybe family or something. The maid comes back and she walks in the door, and it reminds me of that scene from Poltergeist where the psychic comes through the door. She just looks around, and she has a very serious look on her face. She asks my aunt what she's been experiencing. And just to go back a little bit, it took her like 5 days to get back from where she was at because she was visiting family. So she wanted to spend her time. How do we fix what's happened? Because I don't want to live in fear anymore. She goes, "I can't even go into my bedroom because I feel like somebody's watching me. Couldn't take a shower alone. I had to ask my cousin to come to the restroom with me, to sit down, because I was so scared." Everyone had that same feeling. So the maid she has, I guess one of her spirits that she communicates, that comes through her to my aunt, ends up coming to her like an hour within who she's at in the house. From when I was told she's a nun. She's a nun who had passed away, maybe in a different century. She basically says, somebody sent something to you. I guess my aunt and uncle had a lot of people that were jealous of them, of their success, that also practiced or dabbled in maybe some black magic. They waited for whatever low vibrational or dark entity to be sent to her home. Of course, me being the vulnerable one, I was the one who opened the door. And I don't live with guilt. It was just more of not knowing. Maybe a little bit of ignorance. No one ever talks about that. No one ever told me. Later on that night, the maid. She's cleaning, she's working, and she faints. It's my uncle. He starts speaking through her. You have to know that. Whenever a spirit enters someone's body, that person takes on their mannerisms. That person takes on their whole personality. That's who they are, how they walk, how they speak. Even her face changed. Everyone had their mouth covered and was crying. He said he didn't want to die. He came back, but he brought something with him. If you can travel, or if you can maybe hitchhike, or if spirits make deals, and I don't know, I always try to rationalize, thinking, why would he do this? Or is there something that might have followed him? Then again, knowing that somebody else sent it, that ended up making sense. The maid was walking around just like him, opened the fridge, started drinking the way that he drank. My uncle, he was a drinker. He enjoyed his alcohol. He started to drink. Or she started to drink. The maid started to talk to my aunt. He was just saying how sorry he was. And in mid-sentence, that's when she fainted. Once the maid ends up fainting, she's exhausted. She cannot do anything. She needs to rest because it's so much energy that's being used. So she rests. The next day, she performs this ritual with a huge pan on the floor. She puts all these herbs in the middle. I had no idea what was going on. I just know that I was a part of it. It was just so interesting to see her gather up all these ingredients, and there were just flowers and herbs and different types of roses. I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay. I had a million questions. I'm like, am I going to get hurt or what's going to happen? Everybody else pretty much knew. What she was doing was for the betterment. Me being newer and not being exposed to this at all. I was a little scared, but my cousin talked me down. This is so we can help move him out. Help move him on where he needs to go. I said, okay, if that's what it's for, I'm all in. She puts balm or incense into the pan, and there's a good smoke going. She starts singing these prayers, these words, and she's praying. Each of us had to walk over the pan, but in a cross. We walk up, walk back, and then go to the other side. So then it was like, you would make the sign of the cross. Each of us had to do that. After that was done, she had to go through each room, everywhere in the house, and do her thing. I didn't follow her, even though I wanted to, because I was so interested in what she was doing. I just stood back. After that, she says, okay, give it time. Probably within an hour, the house felt so beautiful. Everything was lifted. Everything felt back to normal. Even though he had passed away, it didn't feel like anybody was there staring at me. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. I wasn't living in fear. We didn't hear things throughout the house. I was happy in that sense. But I was just sad because I let whatever was in. Even now, I have the conversation with my kids. If you ever hear knocks, if you ever hear anything at the door, you always look. You just don't ever automatically open the door. My kids always ask me why. Because sometimes there's things out there that are not good. That will come to your door and knock. Sometimes you won't see anybody. You might hear a voice. Because that's happened before to my aunt. She's told me that something comes knocking on her door, and she's heard a voice, and there's nobody there. I just tell them always look, especially knocks in 3, just being involved in my aunt's home. and getting to know my aunt's maid, I ended up asking her questions. And since I don't know Spanish really well, I asked my cousin to ask her. She ended up telling me that when she lived in her country, she was a teenager, she was told that she's a schizophrenic because she would hear voices. She would see things. People just thought that she had either schizophrenia or she was undergoing psychosis. So she was cast out of her family for a while because she was experiencing all these things that she had no idea what was going on. One day she just couldn't take it. She ran away from home. She ended up on the streets of Mexico. She was just laying on the floor covering her ears. And she was saying, "No, Maz, I can't take this anymore." She said a woman came up to her, showed her hand, and she said, "You're not crazy. I see it in you. You have the gift to Tatiana's Eldon." When she told me that, I got immediate chills. I was like, wow, she just saw you and saw that in you. She goes, yeah. She took me under her wing. And this was a lady that she's never met before. She just explained to her and she sat her down. She goes, "I'm going to teach you how to use your gifts, or else you're going to live your life feeling like you're crazy. You're most likely going to end up ending yourself because you don't know how to wield it into your favor." I was told by the maids that I had certain abilities. I feel like I might be clairvoyant or clairaudient. A lot of information comes through me, through dreams or through knowing. I've carried that with me. I hear those same thoughts in my mind, and it's almost like I'm not thinking them. If you want to share your story with us, head on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form. We'll get in touch to see if we can record it. To support our show and get episodes without ads, check out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. It's free for 2 weeks and then for $99 a month. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story "If I Die Before I Wake." From shadowy figures and chilling whispers to a creature running at her in the dark. Her childhood home was a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. My name is Edwin, and here is Caitlin's true scary story. I grew up in Ohio growing up there. I was always told that Ohio was the most haunted state in the U.S. Apparently, we had around 111 supposedly haunted locations. Basically, if you wanted an amusement park, you'd have to take a bit of a drive. But if you wanted a haunted location, you'd probably have to drive right down the road. And that was normal growing up there. I grew up learning about the paranormal. My mother even told me. I grew up around it before I was even aware. I was told everything about life and death, angels and demons, and my mom even gave me a teddy bear. That spoke a prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray my Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. The prayers scared me some nights, thinking about why I wouldn't wake up the next morning. And some nights I felt protected no matter what. My mom told me stories about how someone in the family had passed away, and she used to wear cat-shaped glasses. Apparently during my birthday party, a balloon had floated to the ceiling, and I had pointed to it and said to my mother, there was a lady with pointy glasses holding it. My mother cried that day. I don't remember this event, but I remember when it first started, noticing that something was off. I grew up in a house that had 2 rooms. My parents had to sleep in the living room on the couch, while my siblings and I shared the rooms upstairs. Us 3 girls had to share a room. while my brother had his own. The house had 2 bathrooms, one usable and one not. And in the bathroom that was not usable, there is this huge metal thing in the center of the bathroom. My mom explained that it was possibly an old sewing machine that got left behind. But when I tell you that this room was made of nightmares, I meant it had cracked old tiles, one window, and no working lights at all. And it was always dark in there, just a room you did not want to go into. My parents did make it off limits, but children will be children. I remember laying in bed and being able to see that bathroom entrance from my bedroom. A part of me always believed I saw a figure in a top hat standing there. Imagine that as a child, a man figure, just standing at your doorway next to the bathroom. That always scared you. Along with this, my mother telling me, I saw a man with a large mark on his face next to my bed when I was going to sleep. I don't recall this either, but apparently I was very shaken by it. I started crying. My uncle was babysitting us kids. We were allowed on the computer for 30 minutes to play that one pinball game on the old computer in the dining room. I was a kid, so I was always losing the game, but having fun while doing it. But this night was different. I lost like any normal night, but a pop-up window had appeared, and I thought my game had crashed, but I don't remember what the message had said to me. I remember though seeing a pixelated demon head opening, closing its mouth while an awful noise played. It was dark and deep laughter that became so immensely and loudly distorted that you could barely tell was laughing. I screamed and ran for my uncle, who was already on his way. I was so shaken by this as well. I slept against him on the couch, to my favorite TV show at the time. I chalked this up to be possibly a computer virus. It was the early 2000s. Viruses were going crazy at that time. You see, I like to try to debunk it. I want to be a rational person. But sometimes, there are things that we can't rationalize. There's another time where I was walking down the stairs at night, and I saw a shadow of a man getting closer to me. But when I expect to see the man, as the shadow approaches, only my cat walks by instead with no man in sight. Another time, my dad invited his brother over, and as the adults played cards and board games, my sister and I were upstairs, singing to our Disney Princess radio. Out of nowhere, we heard a bang. Upon looking at the window, we saw a hand. The fingers and palms were all different colors. We could hear all the adults downstairs, my uncle, my dad, and my mother. We didn't own a ladder, and my dad and uncle walked around the house multiple times while my mother consoled us. That's when I realized I wasn't imagining things, because my sister saw it too. And from that point on, things got more aggressive and more terrifying, more physical. We had a small hole in the wall against the stairs, and for some reason, being a kid, I stuck a pencil into it. I did have an eerie feeling about it at the time, but blew it off, and then something grappled. I remember the pencil being yanked so hard, my body hit the wall, and as I yanked it back, whatever it was, yanked harder until I eventually let go, because I was scared. I debated looking in the hole but decided against it. Rats or mice can't tug on stuff that hard, and I can't rationalize it. Maybe my father was on the other side, working on the wall, but no. This hole was pitch black. I would have seen the exit hole had there been one. I remember playing patty cake on those very same stairs with my older sister. Suddenly, She did not fall. She did not slip. She got pushed and tumbled down 3 stairs. Her nose was bleeding, and my father immediately yelled at me, thinking I had pushed her. My big sister had defended me. She looked shocked and pale, but she never spoke about it after that. I thought that would be the climax of it all. But I was wrong, because this memory here will always make me believe in the paranormal, no matter who tells me. It was just an over-imagination incident. I know and remember fully what happened that night. When I was little, I loved snuggling to my mother. So, I would go downstairs and sleep with her on the couch. I remember being so happy and excited, like I always was when I got to sleep with my mom, after waking up halfway through the night. But going down the stairs, I stopped near the bottom. I thought maybe the dogs my parents had to keep from my dad's cousin was eating, but he was outside in the shed, where he could go outside and take care of his business, or go inside and sleep against this big Care Bear stuffed animal I'd given him that night. Cats could not make this noise. Imagine hearing someone eat sloppy. Messy, like whatever they were eating was something wet. Imagine foods like spaghetti enchiladas. Things like that, and someone wolfing it down, as if they were on a time limit, smacking lips, slurping, chewing with mouth open, mouthful type noises. But I knew this wasn't human immediately. I knew why. Because imagine the sounds with aggressive noises too. Grunts, growls, heavy breathing, and then, to top it off, I heard cracking, like whatever it was eating had bones. It was snapping, crunching, and eating it. I thought my parents had died. I had to do something. And in my brain, I had to see what was happening. What if my parents needed help? Looking back, I don't know if I was curious or just brave. I felt electricity shoot through my nerves, by the sound alone. I don't know what made me investigate further. Other than my parents possibly being in danger, I needed to have answers. I stood in front of the living room doorway, trying to strain my eyes to see anything in the pitch black room. And I stood there without minutes, and then I heard it. A grunt, an abrupt, confused short grunt, as if it acknowledged me, as if it didn't know I was standing there. And I was caught at the wrong place, wrong time. There was this deafening pause. I couldn't even hear my heart pounding, but I felt it. My breath pitched. If I stayed perfectly still, I would be okay. That maybe if I didn't move a muscle, whatever this thing was couldn't see me or hear me. Maybe it would leave me alone. Maybe I could leave and get help or call someone. I don't know. All I knew at the time was not to move and to not make a peep. My heart, I'm sure, was pounding so hard someone could easily feel it. I truly thought this was how I was going to die. And then running. It was running. I could hear it rapidly coming at me in the darkness. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it could outrun me. I stayed perfectly still. My eyes kept flicking to the light switch in front of me. The noise was hypnotizing. Alone, it's all I could focus on. And then deafening as it got closer and closer. It was running on 4 legs. I could hear that much snarling and growling loudly. Again, I have no clue what came over me to actually move, but I remember why I did it. I can only describe it as a mother's love and a trust with her child. My mom told me multiple times paranormal hates lights. She even gave me a nightlight in my room. After finding out about all the stories, I told her I trusted my mother and I didn't know what else to do. Right as I could hear it nearing the doorway, I lunged forward and flicked the light on. Nothing. All the noises stopped. It was silent. My eyes adjusted to the light as I stared in every nook, trying to find anything that would scream danger to me, but nothing. Even as a little girl, I wanted to rationalize this. My father was sleeping on the floor. My mother sleeping on the couch, undisturbed. Both sleeping peacefully. No scratch marks in the carpet. An empty pizza box door locked. No animal's TV off. Remote on the side table, absolutely nothing. I turned off the light. I didn't want to wake my parents, but I stood there in case I heard it again. But silence. I ran over to my mother and climbed on top of her as fast as I could, burying myself against her body as I tried to sleep. And eventually, somehow I did. After that incident, all those things stopped. I grew up and never really spoke about it. Unless talking about paranormal stuff, I will always hold these memories fond in my heart. And despite growing out of these beliefs, I saw into adulthood, I will also. Always be fond of my mom's loyalty to her faith, and teaching me it as a young girl, to this day. She's still religious and speaks to me about that faith. I spoke to her about growing up in that house, where it all started for me. I wanted to hear her point of view, now that I was adult and I could understand better. I started off by telling her that my earliest memory I could recall was seemingly crawling on the floor, and everything had a yellow tint to it, and I was heading to a bowl on the ground, and I heard a high-pitched dog bark. She was shocked and confirmed that she remembered that day too. Apparently, I had a habit of trying to eat out of the dog's bowl, and the small dog we had named Sassy chased after me and actually tried to attack me over it. She was shocked I remembered that. It's what I believe my first conscious memory. I told her I remember other stuff and went on about the paranormal things. She 100% agrees with me. Her and my father, actually. My father, I don't believe, was a believer of the paranormal until we lived in that house. And she confirmed and stated we lived in a haunted house, and that paranormal things happened to them as well. Remember, the man by my bed with the mark on his face and neck. Earlier in the story, my parents believe that was my grandfather that night. My grandfather had a birthmark on his cheek, down to his neck. I saw the photos. My grandfather died before I was born. My father was only 17 when he lost him. That was really rough for my father. He was a hard-working man. He had 5 children. He was very work-motivated. He was a family guy, and I wish I would have gotten to meet him. I really do. My dad always says he was like the father that you count on. You know, and my mother said there was a breaking point, and she was freaked out. That she came home and she was yelling at the house. Like just yelling like, we get it. If you're worried about your grandbabies, they're okay. Stop worrying about them. They're protected. They're safe. They're this. And just yelling out to any spirit that's listening. Hoping it's my grandfather. And if she was able to tell him, hey, they're okay. Stop all this. He'd be able to rest easy. I remember my mom explained to me that she went to a pastor to seek advice. I know. She told me that the advice she did receive did help. But upon hearing this, I wondered if my grandpa was checking on us. In the shadow of the man. What if that was him without me noticing? I wonder what he would have thought of me. And how did he truly come to visit us? If he were hurting about having to see us in a spiritual way rather than physical. I wonder if he still checks on us every now and then. I wonder if any of our loved ones I lost check on us, if they're able to and where they are now. But one thing I cannot shake is that night. I can find comfort in my mother's explanation, but pushing my sister along with the memory, I can't forget that couldn't be my grandpa. And to this day, I don't know what it could have been. But whatever's on the other side, I don't think I want to know what it was. Now I'm all grown up, moved out of state, and I'm in a relationship. And despite these events not happening since then, in the back of my head, I always remind myself that when I walk to the bathroom at night, when I'm home alone while my girlfriend's at work, when I least expect it as I enter a room, what if it comes back? To share your true story with our community, head on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form. Everybody gets a response to get in touch with me. You can find links to everything in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon.